Chapter 158. Jingdong sat calmly in the meeting room. In fact, he was already very dissatisfied. A small duchy had made him wait for so long. Even the emperor of a kingdom wouldn't dare to make him wait for so long. Although he was dissatisfied, Jingdong didn't show it. He wanted to see if the emperor of this duchy knew what he was doing. If he could give him something that he was satisfied with, he would pretend that nothing had happened. He would try his best to put in a good word for Yi Hao in front of the fiend demon emperor. Otherwise, Jingdong sneered. His Majesty has arrived. A eunuch outside shouted at the top of his lungs. What arrogance! Jingdong's eyes flashed with dissatisfaction, but he still had a smile on his face. May I know why Lord Jing is here? Yi Hao was wearing a white robe with a giant python embroidered on it. This was the standard attire for the ruler of a duchy in the 10,000 Kingdoms continent. The golden python embroidered on the robe corresponded to the giant python on the imperial seal. If Yi Hao's robe was embroidered with a flood dragon or a golden dragon, but he didn't have the corresponding strength, he would be destroyed by a powerful country. No one could say anything about it. So young. Jingdong looked at Yi Hao's clothes and knew that Yi Hao was the ruler of this Yanlong. But what surprised him was that the person who refreshed the duchy list twice a day was a young man who wasn't even 20 years old. This was because Yi Hao had disguised himself and deliberately made himself look older. If Jingdong knew that Yi Hao's real age was less than 15 years old, who knew what he would think? Young Emperor Yanlong, Jingdong greets you. Jingdong was surprised, but he still nodded slightly to greet Yi Hao. After all, he had his own identity. If it weren't for Yi Hao's duchy list, Jingdong wouldn't even look at Yi Hao. Lord Jing, you don't have to be so courteous. Lord Jing must be tired from the long journey. Why don't we talk while we eat? Yi Hao smiled and gestured to Jingdong. Jingdong looked at Yi Hao carefully. As the saying goes, don't hit a smiling person. Jingdong originally wanted to put Yi Hao in his place, but in the end, his plan was exposed just like that. Good boy, you're much more mature than His Majesty Fiend Demon when he was young. Jingdong couldn't help but praise him in his heart. Not to mention the duchies, even those marquisate states and kingdoms would bow and scrape before him. There weren't many people like Yi Hao who was neither servile nor overbearing. She thought that Yi Hao was purposely ignoring her, but Yi Hao's attitude didn't seem to be the case. He was so young, and he wasn't arrogant or weak. Let's see what good dishes a small duchy like yours can bring out. Young Emperor Yanlong is in the limelight on the duchy rankings. After the state banquet was set up, Yi Hao exchanged for a few bottles of white wine. Jingdong couldn't help but feel refreshed when he smelled the fragrance of the dishes and the wine. Hearing Jingdong's words, Yi Hao couldn't help but scratch his head. What was the duchy rankings? Being in the limelight? He did make a name for himself by killing Emperor Wu, but it had nothing to do with the duchy rankings. Moreover, Yi Hao had obtained the token from Emperor Wu, which represented the identity of the black-robed Emperor Wu. Yi Hao had no choice but to be careful. At that time, he issued a gag order. Under the system's screening, all the enemy spies were all killed. Yi Hao was puzzled. Lord Jing, what is this duchy rankings? When did this young emperor make a name for himself? This young emperor is very low-key. Jingdong drank a mouthful of white wine and almost choked. He looked at Yi Hao in surprise and asked carefully, You really don't know about the duchy rankings? Hearing Jingdong's raised tone, Yi Hao continued to shake his head innocently. Oh my God, how did you do it? I don't know if those duchy emperors would be angered to death if they knew. When Jingdong saw that Yi Hao really didn't know about the duchy rankings, he couldn't help but slap his forehead. He looked at Yi Hao as if he was looking at a monster. Jingdong suppressed his hurt feelings and drank a cup of white wine. He explained to Yi Hao, there is an imperial rankings in the world of 10,000 kingdoms. It is divided into. While listening to Jingdong's words, Yi Hao took out his imperial jade seal and inserted his consciousness into it. An ancient battlefield instantly appeared in his mind. The 3 words Imperial rankings stood proudly between heaven and earth. Below it were 10 rankings that corresponded to the level of a country. Yi Hao noticed that only the duchy rankings at the bottom was shining with a golden light. Yi Hao used his consciousness and opened up the entire duchy rankings. Yi Hao saw that the duchy rankings had 100 pages. Each page had the names of 100 countries and the title of the country's emperor. Yi Hao looked at the first page and saw that the Fire Dragon Empire was ranked 50th. There were 2 small dragons behind it, which confused Yi Hao. Looking at the rankings, there were many countries with small dragons behind them. However, most of them only had one. Even the top 10 countries only had 2 small dragons. Oh my god, this is too magical! Yi Hao sighed in his heart. The Imperial Jade Seal actually had such an effect. He didn't even know about it. After Jing Dong finished speaking, he glanced at Yi Hao. He knew that Yi Hao was looking at the duchy rankings. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. He was completely convinced by the young man in front of him. He ate the delicious food in front of him heartily. It was much better than the food he had eaten when he was alive. Furthermore, although this wine wasn't spirit wine, that fiery feeling filled his taste buds. It was something he had never tasted before. What surprised him was that wine could be so delicious. I don't want anything else, but I must get more of this wine. Jing Dong had already changed his prejudice against Yi Hao. He was still thinking about how to deal with Yi Hao, but now he forgot about it. At the same time, he looked at the 2 bottles of erguotu in front of him as if they were treasures. He didn't come to Yen Long in vain. Lord Jing, why are there 2 small dragons behind my Fire Dragon Empire? After Yi Hao finished checking, he looked at Jing Dong, who was eating and drinking, and asked. Jing Dong raised his head and looked at Yi Hao. He lowered his head and continued to work hard. He said vaguely, "That's the honor of a country. It will be recorded in the history of the world of 10,000 kingdoms. Usually, as long as a record is broken, a small dragon will be rewarded. That doesn't seem to be of much use." Yi Hao shook his head. "Who said it's useless? That's the key to upgrading a country." Yi Hao didn't care about this. Anyway, the world of 10,000 kingdoms would belong to him sooner or later. All countries would cease to exist. Yi Hao wanted to break the law of the jungle and build a peaceful world for everyone to live in harmony and happiness. Unlike now, where there were wars everywhere in the world of 10,000 kingdoms. This was something Yi Hao couldn't bear to see. Moreover, Yi Hao had already guessed that the reason the system brought him to this world should be to take over this world. However, destroying this world would be the opposite. As long as he could make this world's faith become his, it would be equivalent to this world becoming a part of the Chaos Realm. Chapter 159. Ultimate Mission of the 10,000 Nations Continent. Unify the 10,000 Nations Continent. No time limit. Rewards unknown. Alright, the ultimate mission is out. Yi Hao felt immense pressure when he saw the mission. Luckily, there was no time limit. The 10,000 Nations Continent was boundless. According to the records, the 10,000 Nations Continent had never been unified. In the historical records, the 10,000 Nations Continent had always been a tripod of nations. That was why it lived up to its name. However, Yi Hao was full of confidence. No matter how big the 10,000 Nations Continent was, it was just a planet. He had the primal Chaos Realm with him. If he couldn't unify the 10,000 Nations Continent, he might as well kill himself with a piece of tofu. After Jing Dong ate and drank to his heart's content, he went into a drunken stupor. Whether it was intentional or not, he revealed that the Fiend Demon Emperor was wary of Yi Hao. Yi Hao had to agree to the Fire Emperor's invitation on the surface. However, he had to listen to the Fiend Demon Emperor in secret. Otherwise, the Fiend Demon Emperor wouldn't just stand by and watch. He would definitely interfere. "Thank you, Lord Jing. Take these banknotes and drink." Yi Hao was surprised that Jingdong would tell him the truth. He immediately took out the banknotes that he had prepared. According to Yi Hao's temper, he would have asked Guan Yu to kill the Fiend Demon Emperor. The Fiend Demon Emperor was only a beginner martial honorable, while Guan Yu was a peak martial honorable. Killing the Fiend Demon Emperor was easy. However, if he were to join the Fire Emperor temporarily, that would be a problem. Yi Hao wasn't in a hurry to develop his country. He wanted to gain strength so that he could attack other countries. That would be much easier. Blindly staying in the Yen Dragon Empire would hinder his growth. Only by going out to explore and gain experience would he be able to grow quickly. This would put the Fire Dragon Empire in danger. If he went out to train and find pills for the Nangong Wentian, his country would be destroyed. He would go crazy. However, if he had the support of the Fire Dragon Empire, it would be different. Normal enemies, with Guan Yu around, would not be able to destroy Yanlong. Then, he could secretly develop his power. At the very least, he didn't have the right to fall out with the Fire Emperor. Moreover, if he wanted to kill his way to the Great Sun Empire and understand the power behind ZMO, he had to at least have the ability of the Empire. Yi Hao did not doubt that if the Fiend Yao Emperor attacked Yanlong now, Yanlong would not be able to resist at all. Now that he had destroyed the Qian Kingdom, there was still a huge mess to be cleaned up. Fiend Demon Emperor, if you are heartless, I will not be righteous. I will let you be arrogant for a while. When I come back, the first thing I will do is destroy you. Yi Hao already had a plan in mind, and he only agreed verbally. As long as he could reach the level of Emperor Wu or summon a few more Emperor Wu, he wouldn't even have to worry about the Fire Empire. I'm a little drunk. I don't remember what I said just now. Forget about the money. Just give me a few more bottles of wine. Jingdong pushed back Yi Hao's large stack of banknotes. If he didn't have any banknotes, he could go to other countries to get some. This wine was unique. As for the things he said to Yi Hao, he was just being a little more thorough. Otherwise, as long as Yi Hao wasn't stupid, he would naturally understand the logic behind it. Why didn't he help him along the way? Even the Fiend Demon Emperor wouldn't have thought that his confidant almost sold him out for 2 bottles of ergot for the next 3 days. Other than handling official business, Yi Hao accompanied Jingdong to drink and eat. Naturally, he cooked up all kinds of dishes, causing Jingdong to return drunk every time. However, every time he was drunk, he would say some drunken words. Master is really amazing. Just like that, he made an envoy from the spirit nation call him brother. Zhou Lu stood at the side, his face full of admiration. That's nothing. To be able to call master brother is that old man's fortune. The other generals were assigned to manage the cities. Qing Yaojin was familiar with the palace, so he continued to be arranged by Yi Hao to be a commander in the palace. At this time, Qing Yaojin had stolen a drumstick from somewhere. He took a big bite out of it and spoke with a muffled voice. Zhou Lu and Li Hong stood outside the door, shocked by Qing Yaojin's sudden appearance. You came out of nowhere. Li Hong looked at Qing Yaojin, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. You're on duty and you're stealing food again. Qing Yaojin hurriedly put the drumstick behind him, licked his fingers, and stretched out his arm to stop Li Hong. Lord Li, you said that your daughter and master. Qing Yaojin asked nosily. Don't talk nonsense. Li Hong didn't care about Qing Yaojin's greasy hand. He hurriedly pulled Qing Yaojin and Zhou Lu to the side. Who's talking nonsense? That day in the main hall, we all saw how heartbroken your daughter was. Even I, old Qing, was heartbroken. Moreover, Master even wiped away your daughter's tears. Qing Yaojin said, as if it was a matter of fact. Why is Lord Li still unwilling? If I had a daughter, I would want to marry Master. Zhou Lu and Qing Yaojin looked at each other. When they saw that Li Hong was still frowning and thinking, they smiled and said. Li Hong looked at the two helplessly. He looked around and found that there was no one around. Actually, I also have some doubts, but my daughter won't say anything. Lordly, my feeling is definitely correct. Moreover, His Majesty is not young anymore. He still doesn't have a concubine. If your daughter marries Master, she might become the Empress. Zhou Lu analyzed. Zhou Lu was very envious of Li Hong in his heart. He could have such a smart daughter. Most importantly, she had an ambiguous relationship with Yi Hao. But we can't make the decision for Master. Li Hong was obviously very tempted. He had seen Yi Hao's achievements. In his eyes, if Li Ura could marry Yi Hao, regardless of whether she could become the Empress or not, it would be his greatest blessing. Yi Hao had become the ruler of a country at a young age. Most importantly, he was very smart and had strength. Moreover, he had a good relationship with his daughter. If Yi Hao said that he wanted to take his daughter as his concubine, he would agree 100 times. Most importantly, Yi Hao had never said that he wanted to take a concubine. Lordly, you have to be careful. There's still Zhao Yunhan in the harem. Qing Yaojin took a bite of the drumstick and continued to provoke Li Hong. She dared to threaten to divorce Master. Now, she still doesn't know that she's the princess of a fallen country. Most importantly, she doesn't even know Master's true identity. Will Master take her as his concubine? Li Hong snorted at Qing Yaojin's words and shook his head with a smile. Then why didn't Master kill her? Moreover, Zhao Yunhan and your daughter each have their own merit. She doesn't lose to your daughter at all. Qing Yaojin saw that Li Hong didn't care and couldn't help but worry for Li Hong. Is it possible? Li Hong was also a little uncertain and asked the two doubtfully. Chapter 160. Don't. Give me some ideas. Li Hong couldn't help but feel anxious when he saw the two's nonchalance. He said painfully, Master gave me 3 bottles of ergot. I'll take one out and treat you to it. Qing Yaojin and Zhou Hao immediately shook their heads. 1 bottle for 2 people. That's too stingy. At least 1 bottle per person. All right. For our daughter's happiness, 2 bottles it is. Li Hong felt even more pain. But seeing that the two wouldn't act until they saw the hair, he could only grit his teeth and agree. Haha, that's right. Qing Yaojin and Zhou Hao immediately revealed a look of success. Let's go. We'll discuss it in your residence. Qing Yaojin immediately drooled at the thought of drinking ergot. He couldn't wait to drag Li Hong away. The next day, Jing Dong prepared to leave reluctantly. These days in Yanlong had been very enjoyable. Young Emperor, you don't have to send me off. I'm leaving. Yi Hao sent Jing Dong out of the palace. Jing Dong stopped his horse and said, All right, I won't send you off. Men, bring me the gift. Yi Hao jumped off his purple cry flying horse and waved his hand. A few men immediately carried 2 large boxes over. Jing Dong looked at the 2 boxes in confusion. Young Emperor, take these jewels back. I, Jing Dong, may be greedy, but I've never taken money from my friends. Open them. Yi Hao ordered softly. The guards quickly opened the boxes. Jing Dong's eyes widened when he saw the contents of the boxes. Young Emperor, this. Jing Dong was so excited that he couldn't speak. He quickly ran to the boxes and saw that there were 66 bottles of ergot in each box. He was overjoyed. He originally wanted to squeeze a few bottles of ergot out of Yi Hao, but after drinking and chatting with Yi Hao for 3 days, he couldn't bring himself to ask. He didn't expect Yi Hao to have already prepared them. These were much more precious than jewels. Lord Jing, this is more than half of my stock. Please don't think it's too little. Yi Hao deliberately pretended to be pained. After all, this was the only way to make Jing Dong feel that this wine was precious. The rarer something was, the more precious it was. Jing Dong also believed it. After all, Yi Hao had explained to him how difficult and rare it was to make this wine. Of course, this was made up by Yi Hao himself, but Jing Dong believed it without a doubt. It was his first time drinking this wine, and it tasted so good. It would be abnormal if it was so easy to make. Seeing that ergot was so popular, Yi Hao also had the idea of making ergot. After all, there was a recipe in his space. You need a lot of emperors. Take one box back, Jing Dong said reluctantly. Yi Hao chuckled and said, Lord Jing, are you looking down on me? How can this little wine compare to our friendship? Then I won't be pretentious. Thank you, young emperor. Jing Dong ordered his men to carry all the wine to the carriage. He had already made up his mind to say more good things about Yi Hao in front of the fiend demon emperor. Wait a moment, Lord Jing. I want to ask, are there any large alchemy sects nearby? Just as Jing Dong was about to mount his horse, Yi Hao suddenly thought of something important and hurriedly asked. Jing Dong thought for a moment and said, the big alchemy sect is 100,000 kilometers to the west. There's a sect called Gudanzan. I don't know why young emperor is asking about this. Don't tell me you want to buy pills. What kind of pills do you need? As long as the level isn't too high, I can buy them for you. Jing Dong guessed. At the same time, he felt embarrassed to take so much wine from Yi Hao for free. He also wanted to help Yi Hao. No, I'm just curious. Yi Hao didn't want to say more to Jing Dong. After all, he needed a divine pill. How could Jing Dong buy it? Seeing that Yi Hao didn't want to say more, Jing Dong didn't ask any more. Then I'll take my leave. After a few days of development, Yi Hao had reclaimed all the territories of Qian and Zhao. At the same time, he changed many policies, which made the people cheer loudly. They had tacitly agreed to Yanlong's rule. At the same time, Yi Hao recruited a lot of soldiers and made all the generals train day and night. Yi Hao ordered all the old, weak, and sick in the army to be removed. The benefits were much better than before. At the same time, good performance was rewarded with technique. This caused a wave of people to join the army. Qian was bigger, so there were more troops. The destruction of the royal family of Qian naturally caused a lot of rebellions. However, under Guan Yu's suppression, those who stood out were all beheaded and had to surrender obediently. Right now, the Flame Dragon Empire had a total of 1.5 million regular soldiers. In this area, they were the overlords that no one dared to offend. In addition, the Fire Emperor had announced that Yanlong was their vassal state. This made more people not dare to offend Yi Hao. In order to know more about his own troops, Yi Hao changed his clothes and went to the recruitment center to register without the other generals knowing. Yi Hao stood in the long registration line, waiting to register. He couldn't help but regret it. If he had known this would happen, he would have gotten an identity and sneaked into the army camp. He didn't have to waste time here. Lining up here reminded Yi Hao of the feeling of lining up for meals in school. Get out of my way. How dare you block my way? I'll twist your head off. Just as Yi Hao was feeling frustrated, a commotion came from behind. It's General Wu's son. Why is he here? This General Wu is really lucky. So many generals have been killed, but he's still sitting in the general's seat. Sigh, that person is going to be unlucky again. He's going to lose a layer of skin even if he doesn't die. Hearing the commotion in the queue, Yi Hao couldn't help but be curious. Who would dare to be so arrogant in his own troops? The commotion quickly attracted a group of soldiers. Yi Hao decided not to make a move himself. He wanted to see how this group of soldiers would deal with it. How dare you make a ruckus in the military registration center? Be careful that I'll arrest all of you and lock you up for 2 days. Zhang Hao was recently promoted to a squad leader. He couldn't help but feel refreshed. He had been in charge of the recruitment for the past few days. It wasn't easy for someone to cause trouble. Of course, he had to show off his power. He walked over with his chest puffed out and his head held high. Who are you? How dare you be so arrogant here? Men, arrest him. Zhang Hao walked into the crowd. He saw Wu Yu with his arms crossed as he watched his subordinates beat up a civilian. You're squad leader Zhang, right? You came to my house 2 days ago. Do you still remember me? Wu Yu looked at Zhang Hao with disdain and said with a smile. You are? Zhang Hao looked at Wu Yu carefully. Young Master Wu, why are you here? Put away your weapons and arrest this person who offended young Master Wu. Captain, this isn't good. Jiang Li was also a civilian. Now that he saw a civilian being bullied, he was dissatisfied with the actions of the squad leader. However, there was nothing he could do. Who do you think you are to remind me? Zhang Hao felt humiliated when he saw his subordinates refuting his decision. He wanted to teach Jiang Li a lesson. Chapter 161. Who do you think you are? Who are you to speak here? Zhang Hao stopped his attack on Jiang Li and turned to look at Yi Hao. Seeing that Yi Hao was dressed like a commoner, he said contemptuously, "Kid, kneel down and I'll spare your life." Arrogant. Insufferably arrogant. If not for the fact that everyone knew that he was a squad leader, they would have thought that he was a general. Little brother, this is not something you can control. You should leave. Jiang Li did not expect that someone would stand up for him. However, when he saw Yi Hao's attire, he immediately said worriedly. At the same time, he took out all his money and stuffed it into Zhang Hao's hands with a smile. Squad leader, this is a hothead. Don't worry about him. Just let him go. F*CKU. You think you can get rid of me with this amount of money? Zhang Hao kept the money, but he did not want to let it go so easily. Today was a rare opportunity for him to establish his authority. He might even be able to get Wu Yu's recognition and ride on his coattails. If that was the case, his status might even rise again. Jiang Li and Yi Hao would be his tools to establish his might. I told you to stop. Looks like you don't want your arm anymore. Yi Hao was very satisfied with Jiang Li's performance. Soldiers with a sense of justice like him were the pillars of the army. Trash like Zhang Hao was the parasite in the army. Seeing that Zhang Hao attacked again, Yi Hao immediately took out his weapon. A scream was heard. In the blink of an eye, Yi Hao raised the knife in his hand. Zhang Hao's shoulder fell to the ground and blood spurted out instantly. Who is this kid? How dare he attack a soldier? This kid is finished. He dared to chop off a soldier's arm. He won't be able to escape death today. This soldier obviously wants to use this kid to demonstrate his authority. Look at this kid's attire, he's just a commoner. Now that he has chopped off this soldier's arm, he won't be able to escape death. Did anyone notice that this kid is so fast? Good kid, you dare to hurt someone. Men, chop him to death. Wu Yu was slightly taken aback. He looked at the arm lying on the ground, covered in blood, and Zhang Hao, who was clutching his shoulder and screaming. He quickly recovered and looked at Yi Hao with a sinister smile. This Zhang Hao obviously wanted to rely on him. Now that his arm was chopped off by a commoner, how was he going to survive in this world? Now that his father's position in the military had risen, it naturally gave him the right to be arrogant. Everyone knew that the current monarch Yen Long was incomparably powerful. He had single-handedly destroyed the Qian country. The current Fire Dragon Empire could be said to be an overlord. Even the Fire Empire announced that they were trying to rope in the Fire Dragon Empire, which further cemented the position of the Fire Dragon Empire. Now, everyone knew that the Fire Dragon Empire was not to be trifled with, and young Emperor Yen Long strongly supported the development of the military. With his father backing him up, Wu Yu could be said to be unscrupulous in the military. Commoners like Yi Hao could do whatever they wanted. As long as he spoke, he could kill as many as he wanted. No one would dare to refute him. As long as this matter did not spread to young Emperor Yen Long's ears, there would be no problem at all. Wait a minute, young Emperor Yen Long has issued various decrees. Innocent people cannot command the military, and innocent people cannot be killed. Do you want to knowingly break the law? Yi Hao questioned loudly. A few soldiers rushed up and looked at each other. Yi Hao was right. Knowingly breaking the law would result in 80 flogs and a year's worth of salary being deducted. If it was serious, they would be beheaded. Ha ha ha, young Emperor Yanlong's decree. Wu Yu seemed to have heard the funniest joke. Young Emperor Yanlong has the energy to care about the lives of you commoners? Those decrees are only for commoners like you. He can't control me. When the surrounding crowd heard Wu Yu's words, they all had bitter expressions. Wu Yu was right. Although young Emperor Yanlong had issued these decrees, they were only effective for commoners. For a foppish son like Wu Yu, they turned a blind eye. Can't control you? Can't control you? I want to know who your father is. Yi Hao was so angry that he laughed. He thought that the decrees he issued would definitely be carried out. He did not expect that there would really be people who would obey in public but oppose in private. Even a foppish son could use his father's name to oppress commoners and order the country's soldiers. Yi Hao could not stand it anymore. My father is Wu Lengqing, the righteous general appointed by His Majesty, Wu Yu said proudly. Hearing Wu Yu's words, the surrounding people were very envious. It was such a great honor to be appointed by Yanlong's young emperor. No wonder Wu Yu had the right to be so arrogant. Yi Hao frowned inwardly. This righteous general was just a general with a surplus title. Yi Hao had no impression of him at all. This was because all surplus generals below rank 5 were handed over to the great generals to deal with, and then they would stamp their approval. Now, he had become a general appointed by himself. It had to be said that this Wu Yu was really good at bragging. However, the surrounding people all believed him. All of you do it, Wu Yu ordered. At this moment, the soldiers no longer hesitated. They were obviously affected by Wu Yu's father's identity. Wu Yu was a general appointed by the young emperor. This showed how much the young emperor valued Wu Yu's father. Even if the young emperor knew, would he punish his own general for a commoner? In everyone's impression, this was absolutely impossible. Sigh. Yi Hao looked at the soldiers who were rushing towards him. He was intimidated by Wu Yu's words. He could not help but sigh softly. Hurry up and run. You can't win against these people. Jiang Li hesitated for a moment and stood in front of Yi Hao resolutely. After all, Yi Hao was standing up for him. At worst, he would not be a soldier anymore. Yi Hao was a little surprised that Jiang Li could still stand up at this time. Aren't you afraid? Yanlong's policies are so good now. If you stand up now, you might not be a soldier anymore. Jiang Li's face was filled with regret. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. So what if the policies are good? It's a pity that the young emperor can't see it. If the purpose of being a soldier is to bully commoners, I don't want to be a soldier anymore. Who says I can't see it? Yi Hao muttered happily. He put away his weapon and rushed towards the soldiers. These people did not deserve to die, but Yi Hao did not mind teaching them a lesson. He did not show them any mercy. All the soldiers were about to get close to him, but before they could hit him, they were sent flying. Boy, do you want to go against the Fire Dragon Empire? You know that you are fighting against the Fire Dragon Empire's soldiers. Wu Yu did not expect Yi Hao to still dare to attack. What right did this commoner have to challenge his authority again and again? Don't come over. I'll let you go. Go. Seeing that Yi Hao had beaten all the soldiers to the ground and could not move anymore and was slowly walking towards him, Wu Yu could not help but feel anxious. Chapter 162. As the saying goes, there will always be brave men when there is a great reward. Under Wu Yu's promise, many martial artists immediately felt a rush of excitement. Most of them came here to become soldiers. Since they were here to become soldiers, they definitely wanted to get a better position. If they could get Wu Yu's promise, then at least they would be able to mix in the army like a fish in water. You have to think carefully about whether you have the ability. Yi Hao glanced at a few warriors who wanted to make a move and said with a chuckle. The few warriors who wanted to make a move looked at Yi Hao's sharp gaze and the soldier lying on the ground wailing. They couldn't help but hesitate. Trespassing into the military camp. Even if my subordinates commit murder, I won't let you off easily. Yi Hao lifted Wu Yu and threw him to the ground. You dare hit me? Wu Yu's face was full of disbelief as he clutched his chest in pain. Yi Hao sneered and drew his weapon. It wouldn't be too much to kill this kind of dandy. Seeing Yi Hao's cold smile, Wu Yu couldn't help but shiver and beg for mercy. Little master, please spare me. I'll give you whatever you want. His threats were only effective on those cowardly commoners. Wu Yu knew very well that he had to give in to this kind of person who didn't fear death. It's over. Yi Hao didn't care about Wu Yu's begging for mercy at all. Stop. A woman's pleasant voice rang out, bullying people in broad daylight. I'm going to kill you. Yi Hao was stunned for a moment. Before he could react, a girl in black holding a pitch-black sword quickly attacked him. Yi Hao reacted quickly and quickly blocked with his blood-stained dual blade. However, the huge impact caused Yi Hao to retreat dozens of steps, while the girl in black stood on the spot and glared at him. What a strong woman! Yi Hao was shocked. Although he was a first-level martial king, he couldn't lose even if he was against a fifth-level martial king. Yi Hao used an appraisal technique on her. Xiechunyu strength, third-level martial spirit race, blood beast clan, can fuse various magical beasts into your bloodline and use the power of your bloodline to summon powerful magical beasts to fight for you. The summoned magical beasts are much stronger than ordinary magical beasts. No wonder. So it's the third level of the martial spirit realm. He's nearly an entire realm stronger than me. After Yi Hao checked Xiechunyu's information, he could not help but reveal a surprised expression. Looking at Xiechunyu's appearance, she was not much older than him, but her cultivation level was indeed not low. But what exactly was going on with the Blood Fiend clan? However, based on its introduction, it should be very powerful. Ordinary magical beasts were much stronger than warriors of the same level. Normally, they would contract magical beasts, but the corresponding strength of the magical beasts would be reduced by a lot. However, fusing with the power of the bloodline could actually make the magical beasts even stronger. This made Yi Hao think of the summoner class. But the blood beasts were different from the summoner class. This made Yi Hao very curious. How could a magic beast be fused into one's bloodline and then become stronger? Next, Yi Hao saw this valiant scene. He saw Xiechunyu use the black sword in her hand to cut a wound on her arm. Blood dripped onto the ground. Yi Hao was stunned. This girl's temper was too big. Wasn't it just that she didn't kill him? There was no need to cut her wrist and commit suicide just because of a disagreement. However, the wound on Xiechunyu's wrist quickly disappeared, and the drop of blood on the ground made Yi Hao feel a powerful force. Yi Hao looked at the drop of blood on the ground cautiously. Could this be the ability of the Blood Fiend clan? Yi Hao guessed in his heart. The drop of blood on the ground, in front of everyone's eyes, seemed to grow with the wind. It grew bigger and bigger, and finally formed a blood wolf of the third level of the martial spirit realm. Damn, so powerful! A drop of blood can turn into a blood wolf of the third level of the martial spirit realm. Yi Hao was shocked. If he hadn't seen with his own eyes that this 4 to 5 meter tall blood wolf was formed from a drop of blood, he wouldn't have believed it. Little blood, go and teach him a lesson. After Xiechunyu transformed into a blood wolf, her face turned pale as she said to the blood wolf. The blood wolf seemed to be very intelligent and nodded obediently. After turning its head, it fiercely opened its bloody mouth and pounced on Yi Hao. Yi Hao was anxious. Did he have to summon the giant dragon? The giant dragon was injured a few days ago, but there were still remnants of the holy pill in its body. It quickly recovered, but its realm might be about the same as the blood wolf. Looking at the blood wolf that was a few meters away from him, Yi Hao was just about to release the giant dragon when Guan Yu's voice came from the sky. Stop! Guan Yu's strength was at the peak of the martial venerable realm. He instantly pressed the blood wolf to the ground. The blood wolf opened its bloody mouth and fiercely struggled, but it was useless. A martial venerable! Xiechunyu panicked. She could not believe that a martial venerable would appear here. General Guan is here. All the people immediately knelt on the ground with respect and admiration. Little brother, quickly kneel down. Jiangli looked at the blood wolf that was crawling on the ground in fear. She nervously moved to Yi Hao's side and pulled on Yi Hao's sleeve as she whispered in a low voice. Yi Hao smiled and shook his head. It was good enough that Guan Yu did not kneel to him, but he still wanted him to kneel to him. Jiangli sighed. Fine. You have a strong personality. You will definitely not kneel to others. What's going on here? Who dares to hurt Yanlong's soldiers? Guan Yu was attracted by the blood wolf's aura. At first, he did not know what was going on. Now that he saw the soldiers lying on the ground, his face turned cold and he asked sternly. General Guan, it's all because of that brat. Quickly kill him. When Wu Yu saw Guan Yu, it was as if he saw a savior. He quickly got up and said, Who are you? Guan Yu looked at Wu Yu in confusion. This kind of person was obviously not a good person. General Guan, this is my son. Wu Lengqing hurriedly ran here after being informed by the soldiers. Seeing Guan Yu questioning his son, he hurriedly said, So it's General Wu. Guan Yu's expression did not change, but a trace of disgust flashed in his eyes. Recently, he had also been collecting evidence of Wu Lengqing's crimes. If it were not for the fact that he had to keep a few generals alive to stabilize the morale of the army, he would have arrested Wu Lengqing long ago. Father, you have to seek justice for your son. When Wu Yu saw his father, he quickly ran to Wu Lengqing and cried bitterly. Don't worry. Today, even if it's the King of Heaven, I will avenge you. Wu Lengqing looked at his son with heartache. Then he looked at Yi Hao with contempt. Is it you who hurt my son? What a big tone. Yi Hao snorted coldly. It seemed that this father and son were the same kind of people. Their tone was really arrogant. Yi Hao wanted to see what kind of tricks this father and son could play. General Guan, I'll have to trouble you to kill this arrogant brat. Wu Lengqing's eyes flashed with coldness as he asked Guan Yu for instructions. Chapter 163. Xie Chunyu frowned and looked at Yi Hao apologetically. Yi Hao did not look like a bully. She could only blame herself for being too impulsive. I seem to have misunderstood him. What should I do now? Xie Chunyu touched the purple umbrella on her back, and a conflicted expression appeared on her face. She had said before that she would never use this spiritual artifact again because this spiritual artifact was given to her by someone she both loved and hated. She had an irreconcilable feud with that person. That person had lied to her. However, she had to use this spiritual weapon if she wanted to save Yi Hao from Guan Yu, a martial honorable. Enough! Yi Hao snorted. 8 martial king knights appeared around him. They were Yi Hao's bodyguards who had been secretly protecting him. They all came out from the crowd. The young emperor is here. Kneel down. One of the martial kings snorted. The other 4 martial kings pulled up 4 yellow cloths and blocked Yi Hao in the middle. Yi Hao quickly changed into his embroidered robe. The 4 yellow cloths fell down, revealing Yi Hao in his young emperor disguise. How dare you disguise yourself as the young emperor? General Guan, kill this brat. Wu Yu sneered. How dare you speak so loudly in front of the young emperor? One of the martial kings drew his weapon and sent Wu Yu's head flying. Wu Lengqing wanted to stop him, but it was too late. He did not expect the martial king to suddenly attack. General Guan. Wu Lengqing had pinned his hopes on Guan Yu. Unexpectedly, Guan Yu landed on the ground and immediately knelt in front of Yi Hao. Greetings to the Lord. May the Lord live for 10,000 years. Please punish me for not being able to welcome the Lord. What? It's really the Lord. The surrounding people were shocked when they saw this. He was dressed as a commoner. How did he become the young emperor? Moreover, the young emperor was such a noble. Why would he appear here? Many people looked at Wu Lengqing's bitter face and laughed mockingly. His son had offended the young emperor and was now killed. He had even wanted to kill the young emperor before, so he could not escape punishment. This commoner greets the Lord. Many commoners reacted and immediately knelt in front of Yi Hao. Wu Lengqing, do you know your crime? Yi Hao asked softly as he looked at Wu Lengqing's ever-changing face. Wu Lengqing gritted his teeth. A dead pig doesn't know what's hot. This subject doesn't know. Moreover, Lord's men killed my son. I wonder if Lord can give me an explanation. General Wu, you're so powerful. You didn't even kneel when you saw me. Yi Hao looked at Wu Lengqing. Wu Lengqing didn't hide the hatred in his eyes. Wu Lengqing, how dare you? How dare you insult Lord Wu and I? When Guan Yu heard Yi Hao's words, he turned around and yelled out furiously. Wu Lengqing panicked. He was still very fearful of Guan Yu's strength. He had no choice but to kneel down unwillingly. This subject greets the young emperor. Guan Yu, how can this piece of trash be a general of our country? Yi Hao didn't care about Wu Lengqing's reputation and scolded Guan Yu. This subject knows his crime. Guan Yu didn't dare to refute and could only kneel on the ground. Yi Hao pointed at Jiangli, who was kneeling beside him, and softly said, "Explain everything that Wu Yu did just now. Explain everything in detail." Jiangli didn't expect this young man to be the young emperor. Jiangli suddenly remembered. When she said that the young emperor couldn't see everything that she did, Yi Hao muttered softly, "Who said that he couldn't see?" Jiangli thought that she heard it and didn't care. She didn't expect Yi Hao to really be the young emperor. "Yes, Your Majesty." Jiangli stood up respectfully. General Wu's son used his name to bully the commoners and even tried to command the soldiers. He deceived the emperor. "You're talking nonsense," Wu Lengqing said angrily. The first part wasn't a big deal, but the second part was that commanding the soldiers as an ordinary person was a capital offense. Moreover, deceiving the emperor was a crime that could lead to the extermination of an entire family. "Tell me, why did Wu Lengqing beat you up?" Yi Hao took out a pill from his space and handed it to the commoner who was beaten up on the ground. The commoner who was beaten up couldn't believe what he was seeing. He slowly took the pill and swallowed it with trembling hands. The effect of the golden sore pill was comparable to a holy medicine for a low-level martial artist like him. His wounds healed quickly. Feeling the pain disappear, the commoner said gratefully, "Thank you, my lord. Thank you, my lord. The young emperor doesn't seem like a ruthless villain like the rumors say. This young emperor seems a little different. The previous emperors never cared about our lives. He's so lucky to be rewarded with a pill by the young emperor." When the commoners saw this, they started discussing. The previous emperors only cared about their own interests. They didn't care about the lives of low-level people like them. It was normal for commoners to be bullied. Which emperor would kill a general's son for commoners? Therefore, in the 10,000 land continent, commoners didn't care about the concept of a country at all. No matter how many emperors there were, their lives wouldn't change. No emperor would care about their lives. They could only pray that the emperor wouldn't increase their taxes. They would be satisfied. In the 10,000 land continent, where the strong ruled, commoners were always at the bottom. Some people wanted to change their lives. They had to become stronger, while others could only live their lives in a muddle-headed state. Therefore, they were surprised that Yi Hao appeared here dressed as a commoner. On the other hand, Yi Hao had acted on behalf of the commoners and taken out pills to save them. This caused even more commoners to feel moved to tears. They finally knew that the emperor wasn't just a tyrannical person who bullied the weak. He would also think for the commoners. Yi Hao looked at the commoners. Some of them were already crying. He could only sigh at how difficult it was for the weak to live in the 10,000 land continent. This also proved how lowly the weak were in the eyes of the strong. But Yi Hao knew that if he wanted to unify the world, these commoners, these weak people, were the most important. Therefore, when Yi Hao ascended the throne, he announced some policies that were beneficial to the commoners. One of them was to reduce taxes. Even if one wasn't a martial artist, he could still become a soldier. As long as he worked hard enough, he could still achieve success. The commoner said sadly, I listened to my mother and came to sign up. But when I was queuing, that young master said that I was blocking his way. I was about to explain myself when he hit me. Chapter 164. In the world of 10,000 kingdoms, one had the right to speak if one had the power. Wu Longqing had the right to kill people at will. This was deeply ingrained in his mind. Moreover, his son had only injured him, not killed him. No matter what, he was still a general of the 7th level martial marquis. He did not believe that Yi Hao would blame him for this low-level martial artist. Since you've already said that you're my subordinate, then this young emperor shall grant you death. Do it yourself. A martial king brought over a chair from somewhere and sat on it as he spoke. You! Wu Longqing was furious. He did not expect Yi Hao to really want to kill him. What? You don't want to? Yi Hao asked sarcastically. No way, young emperor is really going to kill him? Young emperor, are you really going to stand up for us poor people? The people kneeling on the ground looked at the young man sitting on the chair, afraid that they had misheard. Guan Yu, I order you to gather all the evidence of Wu Longqing's crimes within 2 hours. Yi Hao ordered Guan Yu, also, give me a list of all the generals and officials under your command. I want to see all their information, regardless of whether they are clean or not. Yi Hao wanted to kill for the first time, and it was towards his own subordinate. He thought that with his authority and various legal restrictions, his subordinates would listen to him obediently. Who would have thought that all of them would feign compliance and act as if they were the boss? Yi Hao wanted to rebuild the military's morale. Originally, these generals were summoned by him, so he was not worried about them. However, now that his army had expanded, he could not summon enough generals, so there would be some trash. What Yi Hao wanted to do was to get rid of all these trash before he left Yanlong. Yes, Your Majesty. Guan Yu quickly went to collect the information. It seems that I should set up something like an intelligence bureau. Otherwise, there is no way to bind these civil and military officials. Yi Hao thought to himself. Thinking of the Imperial Secret Service and the Six Fan School in his previous life, it seemed that he should set up one too. Yi Hao was lying on the chair. He was bored and looked at Xie Chunyu. Her blood wolf had already been locked in the dragon prison lake by Yi Hao. Xie Chunyu's strength had decreased greatly. As a precaution, Xie Chunyu's strength had also been sealed by Guan Yu. From time to time, someone would bring in evidence and hand it over to Yi Hao. Looking at the thick pile of evidence in Yi Hao's hands, Wu Longqing gradually revealed a smug expression. In his opinion, Yi Hao was just using his connections to intimidate others. There were so many officials and generals. How many of them were clean? How could Yi Hao kill all of them? Then wouldn't all Yanlong's officials be in danger? Yi Hao's actions would only result in him slapping his own face. Xie Chunyu was furious. Her blood wolf was gone, and her strength was sealed. No matter how she provoked Yi Hao did not speak to her except to look at her. In the end, she felt bored and wanted to know what Yi Hao wanted to do. Xie Chunyu was puzzled. Does he want to kill his own subordinates for these commoners? In her eyes, although the commoners were pitiful, she knew that this was a world where the strong were respected. The strength of a country mainly depended on these officials. Those who could become high-ranking officials were either relatively strong or had the support of their families. And the commoners were basically weak. Who would be stupid enough to kill the strong for a bunch of weaklings? Everyone knew that this was a losing deal. Therefore, in the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, as long as the officials were strong enough, they would not care about their character. Even if they did many bad things, they would turn a blind eye. After all, at crucial moments, they still needed to rely on these generals to fight the war. But Yi Hao knew that if a country did not even have a good foundation, then no matter how strong the country was, it would eventually collapse. and these officials did not even listen to him. What was the point of keeping them? This was because Yi Hao had already given them more than enough. Whether it was power or status, they were all compatible with his strength. If they continued to be greedy, then they could not blame Yi Hao for being ruthless. Cultivation methods, spirit tools, pills, as long as they were of equal strength, Yi Hao would not be stingy and would reward them. How many duchies could do this? Since Yi Hao wanted to unify the 10,000 kingdoms continent, he had to break this pattern. His country had to rely on the law to operate. It was not that you could kill the innocent just because you were strong or a general. Of course, it was extremely difficult to break this pattern. The concept of the 10,000 kingdoms continent being respected by the strong was deeply ingrained in the people's hearts. And the strong killing the weak was the natural right of the strong. As long as their fists were big enough, they could kill at will. And if Yi Hao wanted to break this pattern, it was equivalent to depriving the strong of this right. Then, would the strong of the 10,000 kingdoms continent agree? So, this was extremely difficult. But compared to unifying the 10,000 kingdoms continent, which one was easy, and taking revenge for the ancestors of the Shao family, which one was not easy. Since he wanted to rule this world, then he had to get rid of all the bad habits of this world and create a well-developed 10,000 kingdoms continent. Go, capture these people for me. Yi Hao pulled out a list of people who had committed more serious crimes. Soon, more than 10 officials were brought over by the martial king. They were all dumbfounded. General Wu, what is going on? These officials had never seen Yi Hao before. They thought that some strong person had descended or that the Fire Dragon Empire had changed hands. Young master, we are willing to rely on you, as long as you don't kill us. Some people even said directly to Yi Hao. Yi Hao's face darkened. He didn't even understand the situation, and he had already started to betray him. If he still allowed such a person to hold an important position, wouldn't that be sending Yanlong to his death? They are really reckless. The Lord is here and they want to betray the country. Isn't that the city lord? He was captured too. But I hope that the Lord will kill him. Usually, these officials, other than bullying us, what good have they done? The surrounding crowd was already on Yi Hao's side. Many of them had already regarded themselves as the people of the Fire Dragon Empire. In fact, the hearts of these people were simple. As long as you were good to them, they would work for you. Don't care about me. I'm going to sign up for the army later. Count me in. If we don't follow such a good lord, then we are really blind. I have already signed up. Seeing that the officials and generals who usually bullied the commoners were arrested, the commoners said happily. Chapter 165. Young Emperor? You're Yanlong's young emperor. Impossible, absolutely impossible. The official who wanted to betray Yi Hao turned purple when he heard the discussions of the civilians around him. His face was filled with disbelief, and he started babbling incoherently. The official saw that Yi Hao didn't speak, and glanced at Wu Lingqing's gloating expression. He knew that Yi Hao's identity couldn't be wrong. He immediately cried and knelt at Yi Hao's feet, begging for mercy. Young Emperor, please spare my life. I was muddle-headed for a moment. Please spare me. What's the use of keeping a traitor alive? Tie him up. Yi Hao's kingly aura grew with his anger, and none of the officials dared to look him in the eye. Go and summon all the officials and generals in this city. If they're not here within an hour, they can forget about ever coming back. Yi Hao wanted to let all his officials know what the consequences of being disloyal to the Fire Dragon Empire were. After an hour, Yi Hao gathered all the officials and even the soldiers who were still in training. They looked at him quietly. All right, since everyone is here, I should tell you about Yanlong's laws. Yi Hao closed his eyes for more than an hour before suddenly opening them. He scanned everyone. At this moment, there were more than 1 million people, including the soldiers and civilians. When they saw Yi Hao's gaze, they all lowered their heads obediently, not daring to touch Yi Hao's authority. Yi Hao walked slowly to the official who wanted to betray the empire. "My lord, please spare my life. I know my mistake." Seeing Yi Hao make such a big scene, he already knew that Yi Hao wanted to use him to establish his authority. Beads of sweat kept falling from his head, but no matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't break free from the restraints of the two martial kings. "Soldiers!" Yi Hao looked at the 300,000 soldiers and spoke using the power of martial arts. "Most of you have sons and daughters, your own parents, your own wives, your own relatives, your own families. Although you don't usually see them, you are their protection, their pride. If you don't want to be strong, when Yanlong is destroyed, they will be the ones to be humiliated. I, the young emperor, will build a peaceful and just country where everyone can live happily instead of being bullied and humiliated. I don't know if you want this kind of life. Do you want your families to live this kind of life?" Yi Hao's voice was very loud. It shook everyone's hearts, regardless of whether they were soldiers or civilians. Everyone yearned for that kind of life, but in the past, they didn't have the ability. That kind of life was something they didn't even dare to think about. Now Yi Hao said that he would give them that kind of life. Yi Hao's image of loving the people gradually formed a great image in the hearts of every civilian and soldier. "We want that kind of life. We swear to follow the young emperor until death. We swear to be loyal to the Fire Dragon Empire until death." Someone shouted, and everyone's faces turned red as they shouted. "It's done." Seeing the reaction of the crowd, Yi Hao knew that his benevolent image had been completely established. Next, he had to establish another side of himself to frighten this person with bad intentions. Silence. Yi Hao raised his right hand slightly, and everyone immediately quieted down. This meant that Yi Hao had a sufficient position in their hearts. "If I want to give you this kind of life, I need you to work hard. The stronger you are, the stronger Yanlong will be. Then, no one will dare to provoke Yanlong. We swear to be loyal to Yanlong until death." Apart from the soldiers, even the civilians began to shout loudly. They already regarded themselves as the citizens of the Fire Dragon Empire. Only by implanting the concept of the country into everyone's mind could they feel a sense of belonging. Only then would they be willing to work even harder for the country. This was something that many emperors neglected. Apart from the strong empires, other weak countries couldn't make you feel a sense of belonging. This was also why so many countries in the world of 10,000 kingdoms were destroyed every day, but it didn't affect the civilians at all. In their minds, it was hard to bring up the hatred of a fallen country. Because no matter who became the emperor, they were already at the bottom of the hierarchy. They couldn't escape the fate of being oppressed. And now Yi Hao gave them hope. It made them afraid that for the first time, they would feel a sense of belonging to their country. They would have the urge to work for the Fire Dragon Empire. And they are the foundation of this country. You are the cornerstone of this country. And now, each and every one of you, other than abusing your own people, what else have you done? After Yi Hao won over the hearts of the people, he turned his gaze to the officials and generals. "None of you can escape death for your crimes," Yi Hao said with grief and indignation as he held a thick stack of evidence. Yi Hao handed the evidence of their crimes to a martial king. "Read out the evidence of their crimes loudly. Let everyone hear what they have done. Do they really think that they can deceive their superiors and deceive their descendants for the rest of their lives?" While the martial king read the evidence, Yi Hao didn't stay idle. He took out a dagger and walked towards the official who wanted to commit treason. He said loudly, "From now on, the beheading for treason is abolished." "What?" Everyone ignored the fact that the martial king was reading the evidence. When they heard Yi Hao's voice, it was as if they had misheard. Everyone knew that treason was the most serious crime. The young emperor wouldn't be merciful and want to abolish this law, right? Then everything they had done before would be in vain. Even the beheading for treason was abolished. What could be more serious than treason? The group of officials and generals who broke the law looked smug. In their opinion, it was impossible for Yi Hao to kill them. The righteous officials and generals all looked at Yi Hao with a puzzled expression. Some of them even showed dissatisfaction towards Yi Hao. This was because a ruler was too benevolent, even forgiving people who betrayed the country. How long could this kind of empire last? From now on, treason will be punished with death by 1,000 cuts, Yi Hao said softly without waiting for the crowd's reaction. What's death by 1,000 cuts? Is death by 1,000 cuts more serious than beheading? Don't speak. Listen to His Highness. The crowd had never heard of this new term. They looked at Yi Hao curiously. When the treason official heard this term, although he didn't know what it meant, his heart started to tremble. A bad feeling came into his mind. Death by 1,000 cuts requires the use of a sharp weapon to cut off all the flesh of the traitor. 3,000 cuts, 3,000 pieces of flesh. You can't let him die without 3,000 cuts. Yi Hao held the dagger and kept drawing cuts on the traitor official's body. Yi Hao knew that in this chaotic world, if he only gave them some benefits to manage a country, they would only be ungrateful. If he really wanted the country to be strong, he had to use severe punishment. 3,000 cuts is more horrifying than beheading. I'd rather be beheaded than die by 1,000 cuts. Chapter 166. Hearing Yi Hao's words, everyone's attention was drawn to the dagger in Yi Hao's hand. And after Yi Hao explained the meaning of death by 1,000 cuts, no one thought that Yi Hao was merciful anymore. If this kind of punishment appeared, then who would dare to commit treason? Everyone's hearts were filled with panic. As for the officials who had committed the crime, their hearts were filled with fear. They quickly prayed that Yi Hao wasn't telling the truth. Lord, please spare my life. You can't do this. This is not something a benevolent ruler should do. The traitorous official looked at the dagger in front of him and struggled in fear. Ah, you tyrant! His pleas for mercy were worthless in Yi Hao's eyes. Yi Hao moved the dagger in his hand slightly. One of the official's eyebrows, together with the skin and flesh, fell to the ground. Blood flowed all over the official's face. The official cursed in pain. Everyone's hearts started to tremble violently. No one expected Yi Hao to do it himself. The officials who had committed the crime were all worried that they would be next. And the officials who were not arrested started to reflect on themselves. They wondered if they had done anything wrong. They had to make up for it when they returned. Someone, bring me a pot of oil. Yi Hao did not intend to end things just like this. He ordered his subordinate. Soon, a 3-meter-wide pot of oil appeared in front of everyone. His benevolent side had already been created. And his cruel side, since he wanted to be cruel, he wanted to be cruel to the end. He wanted to make people fearful. He wanted this official to remember that every time he did something in the future, he had to think about the consequences. He wanted to know if they could bear it. Soon, the pot of oil started to boil under the heat of the raging fire. Just as everyone was guessing what Yi Hao was going to do, Yi Hao made his move again. With a slight movement of the dagger, the official's other eyebrow was picked up and thrown into the pot of oil. The meat entered the pot of oil and was quickly cooked. A meaty aroma wafted out. But everyone who smelled the aroma had the urge to vomit. Tyrant, you'll die a horrible death. The official watched as his flesh was sliced off piece by piece and thrown into the frying pan. When Xie Chunyu saw this scene, even though she had experienced all kinds of bloody scenes before, she was still unable to hold back and immediately vomited. But in her heart, she had already started to admire Yi Hao. Although Yi Hao's act was extremely cruel, it was enough to leave a deep impression on everyone. As long as Yen Long did not encounter any major crisis, it would be very difficult for anyone to betray him. Because this scene would never be forgotten in everyone's mind. It would be a shadow in the hearts of every official and general. It would really be like a sharp sword whipping every official. Of course, if Yi Hao did this directly, Then Yi Hao's image as a tyrant would never be erased. But Yi Hao had given his people a world they yearned for and built up the image of a good ruler. The combination of these two undoubtedly pushed Yi Hao's image to the highest position. He was obviously telling everyone that he could give them the life they wanted, that he could give them all kinds of glory and status. But the prerequisite was that they had to be loyal to him and this country. If they did something wrong, they had to think about the consequences. He was definitely not a soft-hearted ruler. Yi Hao's move was a combination of kindness and power. Every aspect was done to the extreme, and it covered everyone's heart. It did not mean that they would not have a chance to succeed just because they were a commoner. It also did not mean that they could be lawless just because they were a high-ranking official. Once Yi Hao's act was done, it would definitely spread to the ears of everyone in the Fire Dragon Empire. Yi Hao's image would also be deeply ingrained in everyone's mind. As long as they worked hard, they would have a good life. Just don't make any mistakes. Yi Hao was the perfect example of an emperor's temperament, but he was also very close to the people. This was the true nature of an emperor. Yi Hao's move would attract countless young commoners to follow him fervently. "I beg you, kill me, kill me!" The official's body had been slashed more than 1,000 times. A layer of flesh was floating in the oil pan. Most of it was already giving off a burnt smell. The official no longer scolded Yi Hao. He only prayed for death in his heart. He finally understood what it meant to live a life worse than death. It turned out that there were things in this world that were scarier than death. Every time Yi Hao moved the dagger in his hand, a piece of flesh would be cut off from his body. The pain was unforgettable. He had to watch his flesh fall into the oil pan and be cooked. If he was given another chance, he would never do such heinous things again. It was as if he could see innocent people being killed just because he was unhappy. He even stole other people's wives and killed their entire families. There were even some pregnant women that he didn't let go. In the end, they were all tortured to death by him. These scenes kept appearing in his mind. He only prayed that Yi Hao could give him a painful death, so that he could end this torment quickly. "If you want to die, wait for 3,000 cuts." The emperor didn't joke. If he said that he wanted 3,000 cuts, then it wouldn't be one more or one less. "You devil, you're a devil." The official looked at Yi Hao in fear. He wanted to bite his tongue and commit suicide. "It's not that easy to die." Yi Hao used his hand to pinch open the official's mouth. A golden sore pill was shot into the official's mouth. He said to his subordinate, "Pinch his mouth for me." Many people looked at this scene in fear. They knew how terrifying death by 1,000 cuts was. Even suicide was not allowed. "Lunatic, lunatic." Wu Lengqing looked at the official and seemed to see his own end. Gradually, he began to talk incoherently. His mind was also in chaos. He looked at Yi Hao with fear in his eyes. I'm a sinner. I won't die a good death." Wu Lengqing suddenly broke down. He got up from the ground and kept grabbing his hair. "General Wu is scared out of his wits. If it were me, I would have broken down long ago. In the future, I will be loyal to the country and work for the people. I will never do anything against my conscience." Seeing that Wu Lengqing was scared out of his wits, everyone looked at him with a complicated expression. It was retribution, but there was also a little pity. He was originally conferred the title of Righteous General. Although he wasn't a great general and was only a 5th-grade general, he still had a promising future. Who knew that he would be so unlucky to run into Yi Hao's gun? Not only did he not kill his son, but he also went crazy. According to Yen Long's law, according to King Wu's sentence, he would be tortured by 1,000 cuts. His family might even be executed. Chapter 167. Just when everyone thought that Wu Lengqing was running toward the pot of oil, they all turned their heads away. They couldn't bear to watch this scene. What a good show! Yi Hao saw the crazed Wu Lengqing from the side. His eyes flashed with murderous intent and unwillingness. This wasn't something that a crazed person should have. Just when everyone let down their guard, Wu Lingqing suddenly took out his dagger and stabbed it toward Yi Hao's chest. "I will kill you to avenge my son." Bang! Yi Hao was prepared. He kicked Wu Lingqing's chest. Only then did the others realize that Wu Lingqing was playing dumb. Guan Yu rushed in front of Yi Hao in an instant. The green dragon crescent blade in his hand chopped towards Wu Lingqing's head. "Traitor, you are courting death. Stop it." At this critical moment, Yi Hao suddenly spoke up to stop her. "Doesn't he like to play dumb? Go take out the meat from the pot and feed it to him. You want to kill me and you want to die so easily? No way. Fatuous ruler, just kill me. I won't eat it even if I die." Wu Lingqing didn't expect his acting to be so realistic. He had fooled everyone except Yi Hao. Otherwise, Yi Hao would have been dead by now. When he saw Guan Yu rush out, he felt unusually excited. At least he didn't have to be tortured. He could die. Who knew that Yi Hao would suddenly order Guan Yu to stop? Hearing Yi Hao's words, Wu Lingqing saw a few soldiers run out of the pot of oil and bring the meat in front of him. He couldn't stop vomiting. A few soldiers immediately held Wu Lingqing down so that he couldn't move. One soldier forced his mouth open. Another soldier closed his eyes and stuffed the meat into Wu Lingqing's mouth. Wu Lingqing struggled with all his might, but it was useless. The civilians who were bullied before, and the soldiers who were bullied by Wu Lingqing, were heartbroken. As for the officials, they all turned their heads to the side, not daring to look at him. "Turn your heads around," Yi Hao said sternly as he scanned the officials. They didn't dare to disobey Yi Hao's orders. They could only turn their heads and watch this bloody scene. Yi Hao's voice was like a large bell that struck everyone's hearts. "All of you, remember this scene. It doesn't matter if you're an official or not. As long as you're a citizen of the Fire Dragon Empire, you have to think about everything you do in the future. Is what you're doing right or wrong? I, Yen Long, will reward those who make a contribution and punish those who make a mistake. From the common people to the civil and military officials, do you understand?" "Yes, Your Highness." This commoner obeys. Everyone, whether they were soldiers, commoners, or civil and military officials, respectfully kneeled on the ground. After Yi Hao finished his words, he continued to dismember the officials. Without Yi Hao's order, no one dared to stand up. All of them respectfully kneeled on the ground and watched this scene. They reminded themselves deeply in their minds not to make any mistakes in the future. Yen Long's laws were not just for show. Millions of people were watching this scene, but the scene was unusually quiet. Only the screams of the officials who were being dismembered and Wu Lingqing's vomiting filled everyone's ears. Of course, there were many spies from other countries among the millions of people. In the end, when they saw the scene before them, everyone's legs instantly turned soft. Cutting off his own flesh while he was still alive. They were all wondering how Yi Hao came up with this kind of torture. At this moment, the spies from other countries only wanted to leave as soon as possible. This was simply too terrifying. Staying here for even a moment longer was a kind of torture. But since everyone else was kneeling on the ground, they didn't dare to move. They could only kneel on the ground obediently. Some of the weaker ones were so scared that they even peed their pants. After Yi Hao left, many of the people who had originally wanted to deal with the flame dragon were now intimidated by him. Some weak principalities even showed the intention of surrendering to Yen Long. And even after Yi Hao left, all the officials of the Fire Dragon Empire still conscientiously did their own things. No one dared to act recklessly according to their own power. And those foppish people had all changed their bad habits and became hard-working people. Ding dong! The host's reputation value has increased by 10,000. Ding dong, the host's reputation value has increased by 10,000. At the same time, the reputation value in Yi Hao's mind rose crazily. Yi Hao was overjoyed. He didn't need to do all this. It seemed like these people had really submitted to him. And at the same time that Yi Hao's reputation rose, Yanlong's national luck also rose crazily. He instantly rushed into the top 10 and broke the record again. A country's luck was linked to its citizens. Now that millions of people were willing to submit to the Fire Dragon Empire, the country's luck would naturally rise crazily. And this was just the millions of people present. If this matter spread, then Yanlong's luck would definitely soar again. After 2,999 slashes, the official was still alive. Yi Hao asked, "Do you admit to your crimes?" The official raised his head with difficulty and revealed an expression of relief. With a smile, he said, "I admit to my crimes. Lord, please grant me death." After being slashed 2,999 times, no matter how strong his will was, it would be destroyed. Now, he only wanted to die. How would he dare to resist Yi Hao? If Yi Hao didn't let him go and gave him a few more pills and a few more slashes, it's good that you admit to your crimes. Then, this young emperor will grant you death. Yi Hao's expression was unreadable. The dagger in his hand easily slit the official's throat. The official closed his eyes in relief. So, death was so wonderful. Today, this emperor will kill all the guilty officials. Yi Hao took the blood-stained dual blades in his hands and turned to the group of officials who were kneeling on the ground. "Let them go," Yi Hao said softly as he looked at the nearly 100 officials who had committed a capital offense. "All of you, come at me together. If you can defeat me, this young emperor will spare your lives." Since he wanted to establish his authority, it was far from enough to show his ferocity. In the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, everyone worshipped martial strength. He had to show enough martial strength to convince the people. "Lord, you can't." Many officials quickly dissuaded him. Among the nearly 100 officials, there was no lack of people who had been on the battlefield for a long time. Now that Yi Hao had forced them into a dead end, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call them desperados. "Fatuous Emperor, you asked for it. Brothers, we can only live if we kill this fatuous emperor. Otherwise, we will die. Since you want us to come at you together, can you give us your weapons?" The nearly 100 officials were still afraid of Yi Hao's actions. They looked at the blood-stained dual blades in Yi Hao's hands and asked nervously. Chapter 168. Give it to them. Yi Hao ignored them and said softly as he sat on a chair. He was now a first-level martial king and could kill people above his level. Even a fifth-level martial king was not a problem. In addition, with his blood-stained armor and blood-stained dual sabers, he could use all his strength. Even if it was a peak martial king, Yi Hao believed that he could fight. Most of these officials were only at the level of Wu Ho. Although there were more than 10 martial kings, they were all early-level martial kings. Yi Hao was confident that he could kill all of them. Since he wanted to show off, he would do it to the end. Yi Hao took out nearly 100 spiritual weapons from his space and threw them on the ground. "Choose for yourself. If you can defeat me, these spiritual weapons are all yours." Oh my God, so many spiritual weapons! In the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, there was no one who did not know about spiritual weapons. Seeing that Yi Hao did not care and threw out hundreds of spiritual weapons, everyone swallowed their saliva at the same time. Not to mention these people, even the officials were envious when they saw the spiritual weapons on the ground. Although they were from the Marquiate country in the past, the Qian Marquiate country was a weak Marquiate country and did not have any spiritual weapons for them. The good spiritual weapons were all used by the royal family. In a short while, all the spiritual weapons on the ground were snatched up. Spiritual weapons could increase their combat strength. If they could grab a spiritual weapon, they would have a 10% chance of survival. "Dog Emperor, go to hell." A third-level minister of Wu Ho suddenly attacked Yi Hao from behind while everyone was admiring the spiritual weapons. "Be careful!" Xie Chunyu shouted worriedly in her heart. Hearing Xie Chunyu's voice, everyone reacted and was worried for Yi Hao. Yi Hao did not even look behind him. As if he had eyes on his back, the blood-stained dual sabers in his hands stabbed back at the critical moment and hit the chest of the person who wanted to sneak attack him. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief and broke out in a cold sweat for Yi Hao. Yi Hao picked up the spiritual weapon on the ground and gently flicked it. The spiritual weapon instantly flew in front of Jiangli. You did well. You've been promoted by 3 ranks. This spiritual weapon is your reward. Jiangli could not believe her ears. She stared blankly at the spiritual weapon in front of her. For me? Very quickly, Jiangli reacted. Under the envy of everyone, he knelt on the ground excitedly. Thank you, Lord. Brothers, let's attack together. Seeing that Yi Hao had killed one of his men so easily, one of the First Order Martial King realm cultivators suddenly shouted. This First Order Martial King had a certain status among the crowd. Hearing his words, everyone started to surround Yi Hao from all directions. 72 Deadly Blades. Yi Hao used a martial skill and quickly used the butterfly shadow step to rush towards the person closest to him. The first strike. Yi Hao's blood-stained dual blades easily cut through a person's body. Before that person could react, he realized that he could no longer move. Oh my God, what a fast speed! What a fast blade technique! Everyone looked at Yi Hao's blurry figure in shock. Like a butterfly king, he shuttled through the crowd and danced gracefully, creating waves of bloody rain. The 12th strike. Every time Yi Hao swung his blade, he would take a life. At the same time, he spoke coldly. Ah, where is he? I can't catch him at all. Many people could only see Yi Hao's figure. They could not catch up with Yi Hao at all. They could only wave their weapons wildly. The 13th strike. The 14th strike. Yi Hao's cold, demon-like voice kept ringing in everyone's ears, driving them crazy. So killing can be so beautiful. Many young girls were overflowing with love. Looking at Yi Hao's handsome figure, they spoke with infatuation and worship. The 36th strike. At this moment there were already 36 corpses lying on the ground. Among them was the martial king who had spoken at the beginning. His body had been split in half by Yi Hao. Originally, everyone was hoping to wait for Yi Hao to exhaust his stamina before swarming him. Who knew that Yi Hao would become stronger as he fought? They could only blame themselves for not knowing that Yi Hao had renamed the deadly 72 punches as the deadly 72 strike. It was much stronger than before. Coupled with the butterfly shadow steps, it was even more powerful. Among the 72 strikes, the first strike was the weakest. Each strike was stronger than the last. The last strike could even increase one's combat strength by 10 times. Therefore, it was wishful thinking for them to exhaust Yi Hao's stamina. Brothers, split up and run. Let's exhaust the Dog Emperor first. Someone suddenly shouted loudly. Everyone felt that it was reasonable and quickly scattered in all directions. The 45th strike. Yi Hao seemed to have lost his consciousness. He had already merged with the blood-stained dual blades in his hands. No matter where people ran, he could quickly catch up and slash them. Could it be that he has become one with the blades? Xie Chunyu thought in shock. Why? I feel like the blades are alive. They are simply my left and right arms. Yi Hao kept killing people. He was puzzled. He had never felt this way before. The 70th strike. Brothers, let's go. He only has 2 strikes left of the deadly 72 strike. The remaining martial kings shouted excitedly. Yi Hao had said that every strike of the deadly 72 strikes would take a life. Now, he had already reached the 70th strike. In other words, there were only 2 more strikes left before Yi Hao could no longer hold on. As for them, there were still about 20 people left. Furthermore, they were all the strongest. Otherwise, they would not have been able to survive until the end. 72 strikes. Why do I feel like there are more to come? Yi Hao seemed to have grasped something. He was just one step away from being able to grasp it. He felt that the 72nd strike was not the strongest. The move behind it seemed to be even stronger. Every time he used a strike, he would get closer to the next move. However, the closer he got to the next move, Yi Hao was afraid that this feeling would suddenly disappear and he would never be able to grasp the next move again. However, Yi Hao would not give up until he reached the Yellow River. He had clearly killed these people without using any martial arts technique. However, he still wanted to grasp the next move, the 71st strike. Yi Hao killed another person. However, he did not care at all. He kept searching for the next move in his heart. He was completely unaware that everyone had already surrounded him. The 72nd strike. Yi Hao killed another person. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks and frowned. What exactly is this move? Why can't I grasp it? Yi Hao stood there motionlessly. This gave the remaining people a fright. However, when they realized that Yi Hao was just standing there in a daze, everyone was overjoyed. They gripped their weapons tightly and charged towards Yi Hao. The 20 people surrounded Yi Hao. They raised their weapons at the same time. If they dropped their weapons, Yi Hao would definitely be chopped into minced meat. Lord, it's dangerous. When everyone saw this scene, their hearts were in their mouth. They did not know why Yi Hao was standing there in a daze at this critical moment. I understand. Chapter 169. So that's how it is. Yi Hao, who had been standing motionlessly in his original spot, suddenly moved his sabers. If one observed carefully, they would discover that Yi Hao's move had the shadow of the previous 72 moves, but there was a huge difference between them. The 20-odd people surrounding Yi Hao did not even have the chance to react before they were all split in half. Our Lord is mighty. Long live our Lord. Seeing Yi Hao's sudden display of might, everyone began to loudly cheer out loud. What a strong aptitude! He can actually create a martial technique in the middle of a battle. Xie Chunyu looked deeply at Yi Hao. She could not help but admire Yi Hao's courage. If Yi Hao had been a little later, Yi Hao would have been turned into meat paste. Returned to the capital. Yi Hao waved his hand and the rank 5 spirit artifact carriage appeared. The gilded carriage emitted a dense king's aura. Yi Hao stepped into the carriage and the purple cry flying horse pulled the carriage. The 8 martial kings immediately chased after him. Respectfully sending off my lord. The crowd automatically opened up a path. Hey, wait for me! Xie Chunyu shouted anxiously. Her blood wolf had been locked up by Yi Hao. Without it, her strength would be greatly reduced. She quickly chased after him. I seem to have forgotten something. Yi Hao sat in the carriage. Using a martial technique earlier had exhausted him. Otherwise, he would not have entered the carriage without saying anything. Yi Hao was too tired. He closed his eyes and fell asleep. Xie Chunyu carried a purple umbrella and quickly chased after him. Where are we? Yi Hao woke up and asked as he looked at the starry sky outside. When the 8 martial kings heard Yi Hao's voice, they quickly surrounded him. A few of them looked at each other awkwardly. One of the team leaders said awkwardly, My lord, we seem to be lost. What are you doing? Yi Hao immediately sat up. Your Majesty, we have been following your mount all this time. We thought it was your order. How could we dare to stop you? One of the martial kings said, feeling wronged. Yi Hao jumped off the carriage and patted Ziming flying horse's head. You can't even lead the way. I might as well kill you and eat some meat. Suddenly, Yi Hao saw a figure on the carriage. He immediately took out his weapon and asked cautiously, Who is it? Wu Xie Chunyu, who was in the carriage, struggled but was unable to speak. Yi Hao immediately pulled Xie Chunyu down from the car roof. He removed the rope from Xie Chunyu's body and the thing in her mouth. Facing Xie Chunyu's fiery eyes, Yi Hao said speechlessly, Why are you on top of my car? You still have the nerve to ask this lady? It's all your subordinate's fault. Xie Chunyu had never suffered such grievances. She was a martial spirit realm cultivator, but she suffered such a great loss in a duchy. She was even tied up and thrown on top of a carriage. Yi Hao looked at the martial kings who were looking at each other and asked, "What's going on?" "Your Majesty, you said that we should return to the capital. This lady has been following us, but her cultivation has been sealed by General Guan. Your Majesty hasn't said what to do with this lady. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. We had no choice but to tie her up." A martial king said embarrassedly, "You followed us, so you can't blame my subordinate. It's good enough that they didn't kill you." Yi Hao spread his hands and said softly, "Besides, why are you following us?" Xie Chunyu didn't think much of Yi Hao's words. Even if her cultivation was sealed, she still had this spirit umbrella. She still didn't put these people in her eyes. Although she couldn't use this spirit umbrella, she still said unwillingly, "We'll talk about it after you kill this lady." "Then why are you tied up?" Yi Hao bluntly attacked Xie Chunyu's arrogance. "That's because..." Xie Chunyu touched the purple umbrella on her back, as if she had thought of something sad, and turned her head to the side. Yi Hao looked at the umbrella on Xie Chunyu's back. He was very curious why Xie Chunyu always carried this purple umbrella, as if this umbrella was very important to her. However, when he saw that Xie Chunyu seemed to have thought of something sad, he didn't ask further. "Hey, do you know where this is?" Yi Hao was holding a demonic beast's thigh in his hand. He was roasting it over a raging fire, giving off a fragrant smell. The 8 martial kings stood to the side, vigilantly guarding against any demonic beast's sneak attack. "You actually know how to roast meat." Xie Chunyu looked at Yi Hao curiously, not caring at all about Yi Hao's question. In her eyes, Yi Hao was an emperor. Even if he was the emperor of a duchy, he was still the emperor. Shouldn't emperors be spoiled since they were young? Shouldn't such chores be done by the guards? "What's so difficult about this?" Yi Hao said proudly. At the same time, he sprinkled all the seasonings that he had exchanged from the system onto the meat. After all, in his previous life, he had gone out for a barbecue with his colleague. Although he didn't roast it well at first, after all, the demonic beast's meat in this world was incomparable to the pork and mutton in his previous life. However, after a long period of practice, Yi Hao's culinary skills were considered good. Previously, when he was bored, he even specially learned from chefs for a period of time. After all, he couldn't always bring a chef with him when he went out. Yi Hao firmly believed that he could make enough food and clothing with his own hand. "Then, this piece of meat is for you." Yi Hao held a dagger, cut off a piece of meat from the beast's thigh, and handed it to Xie Chunyu. Xie Chunyu looked at the dagger in Yi Hao's hand with disdain. After all, Yi Hao used a dagger to dismember officials. "Don't worry, it's clean," Yi Hao said speechlessly. "You're just a little girl who came out to make a living. Why do you care so much?" Xie Chunyu was also hungry. She snatched the barbecue meat from Yi Hao's hand and said, "Seeing that you've worked hard to roast it, I'll give you face and see if it's delicious or not." Xie Chunyu looked at the meat on the dagger. It was glistening with oil, and the aroma made her involuntarily swallow her saliva. She secretly glanced at Yi Hao. When she realized that Yi Hao wasn't looking at her, she immediately took a bite. What a strange taste! The fragrance of the seasonings filled her taste buds. It was something that she had never tried before. Moreover, the meat melted in her mouth. It could be said that Yi Hao's barbecue skills were at the peak of perfection. Xie Chunyu secretly thought. Suddenly, she remembered that that person had also barbecued meat for her in the past. She originally thought that it was the best thing she had ever eaten. She didn't expect to eat barbecued meat that was even better than his barbecue today. "Hey, if you want to eat meat, just eat it. Why are you in a daze?" Yi Hao's voice suddenly rang in her ears, causing her to come back to her senses. Only then did she notice that she had unknowingly finished the large piece of barbecued meat in her hand. Xie Chunyu's face was a little red as she said, "Can you give me another piece? I'm not full yet." Chapter 170. Eating barbecued meat and drinking beer is a perfect match. Yi Hao glanced at Xie Chunyu and immediately exchanged a few bottles of beer with the system. He noticed that a few of his subordinates were looking at the barbecued meat in his hand. You guys take it and divide it. Yi Hao smiled and shook his head. A beast leg was nearly a meter long. Yi Hao cut a piece for Xie Chunyu and threw the rest of the beast leg to a martial king. The martial kings couldn't believe their ears. They wanted to kneel down and thank him, but Yi Hao stopped them. In the future, call me young master outside. Since they had already gone the wrong way, Yi Hao didn't plan to return to Yanlong. In any case, he had already explained everything. Fortunately, he was heading in the right direction. Gudanzan was also in the west. As for the Fire Dragon Empire, it had the backing of the Fire Emperor dynasty and the Evil Demon Spirit Kingdom. It had a loyal minister like Li Hong and a martial saint like Guan Yu. Yi Hao was very relieved. Fortunately, they should still be in Yanlong's territory. When the time came, he could leave a martial king to inform Guan Yu and the others. They wouldn't have to worry about him. Half a month later, Yi Hao and the others were heading west. Young master, I've already asked around. There is a city in front. It seems to be a king-level city. A martial king returned and reported to Yi Hao. Then let's speed up and rest in the city. Yi Hao nodded as he rode on the purple cry flying horse. Yi Hao was surprised that Xie Chunyu was riding on the blood wolf. Yi Hao thought that the blood wolf could only fight. He didn't expect that the fire wolf could be used as a mount. What surprised Yi Hao was that Xie Chunyu had been following him all the way. Yi Hao curiously asked Xie Chunyu why, but in the end Xie Chunyu replied with 2 words, causing him to sweat profusely. Barbecued meat. This girl would be abducted just for a bite of food. However, Yi Hao did not stop her. It was a boring journey, and Xie Chunyu really added a lot of joy to the journey. Why is this city so lively? Along the way, Yi Hao saw many people running towards the city. Yi Hao asked in confusion. Noticing the confusion on Yi Hao's face, the guard quickly explained, Young master, it's said that the city up ahead has an annual beast appraisal competition. Beast appraisal competition? What do you mean? On the other hand, Yi Hao had never heard of it before. The guard also looked embarrassed. It seemed that he was not clear about it either. To put it nicely, beast appraising is called beast appraising. To put it bluntly, it's called gambling. Xie Chunyu, who was riding beside Yi Hao on her firewolf, brushed her hair that had been messed up by the wind and said disdainfully, Tell me more about beast appraising. Yi Hao's interest was piqued. Xie Chunyu glanced at Yi Hao and stopped her firewolf. She kindly advised, Those things are all lies. If you have that kind of money, why don't you focus on developing your country? Don't waste it on these things. Is beast appraising very difficult? Yi Hao was even more curious when he saw Xie Chunyu's exaggerated expression. It's very difficult. Beast appraising is to identify magical beasts' eggs. Identify magical beasts' eggs. In the 10,000 Lands continent, many magical beasts breed by incubating their eggs. These eggs are usually hidden by the magical beast. Moreover, most magical beasts' eggs are covered in a layer of mucus when they're laid. It's impossible to tell the species of the magical beast's egg. Moreover, 80% of these eggs are dead. Xie Chunyun explained slowly as she looked at Yi Hao's curious expression. When Yi Hao heard this, he was immediately reminded of stone gambling in his past life. Beast appraising was not much different from stone gambling. No wonder Xie Chunyu said it was gambling. Wasn't stone gambling a gamble? One cut could make a person rich, but at the same time, one cut could also make a person bankrupt. Yi Hao asked, We're all martial artists. Why can't we use our mental strength to examine them? This is the hardest part about gambling eggs. When a magical beast's egg is laid, the layer of mucus on its body can block one's mental strength. Moreover, before the egg hatches, mental strength is the biggest taboo. Once it comes into contact with mental strength, it will immediately turn into a dead egg. Xiechunyu didn't mind Yi Hao's interruption. This should be something that any normal person would think of. Isn't that very difficult? Yi Hao didn't expect a magical beast's egg to be so fragile. If one couldn't even examine it with their mental strength, how could they appraise it? That's why I said it's gambling. Moreover, it's even more impossible to obtain a high-level magical beast from it. This is because the higher the level of the magical beast, the more secretive the egg will be. Moreover, the area will also be more dangerous. It's impossible for a normal person to find it. Moreover, the higher the level of the magical beast, the higher the chances of its egg being dead. Xiechunyu wanted to discourage Yi Hao's curiosity, because in her eyes, gambling eggs were simply a scam. Then why are there still people playing? Yi Hao couldn't understand. Since gambling eggs were so unbearable, why were there still so many people willing to play? Xiechunyu couldn't help but admit that although she didn't think highly of beast appraising, some people had developed it into a profession. Some people devoted their entire lives to appraising beasts. If they could appraise a high-level magical beast, their glory and status would skyrocket. After all, magical beasts were extremely powerful in combat. Who wouldn't want to own a powerful magical beast? However, it was extremely difficult to contract a magical beast like Yi Hao, who had contracted a dragon. Unless one had the help of a powerful person, it would be impossible to contract a magical beast. There were also many people who didn't have any background at all. It was even more impossible for them to ask a powerful person for help. Moreover, magical beasts would rather die than submit. It was simply too difficult to contract a magical beast. Unless one went to a sect that specialized in rearing magical beasts, one could purchase a magical beast's young. However, almost no sect would be willing to sell a powerful magical beast's young. After all, everyone knew that strength was the most important thing. Even if one was sold, the price wasn't something that ordinary people could afford. Take the Celestial Wolf Kingdom for example. Although it was a kingdom, it only had a few fourth-level magical beasts. Later on, all of them were killed by the Nangong Wentian. Only the Celestial Wolf King's baby was a fifth-level magical beast. If the Nangong Wentian hadn't fought to the death, the Nangong Wentian might have been killed. However, adding a magical beast was the most direct way to increase one's combat strength. As for equipment, most people simply didn't have enough money to buy it. They could only pin their hopes on gambling eggs. Although gambling eggs were expensive, it paled in comparison to buying equipment. If one could obtain a high-level magical beast, regardless of whether they sold it or used it for their own use, it would undoubtedly be a huge profit. This also made many people think that they could take advantage of the situation. As a result, beast appraising became even crazier. Chapter 171. Come, let's go take a look. Yi Hao hadn't had the chance to play since he came to this world. He had to try something so interesting. In his previous life, he was poor and didn't dare to try many things because he didn't have the money. Now, he had tens of millions on him. Moreover, Yi Hao wasn't wasting money. Instead, Yi Hao wanted to know if his appraisal skill would be useful for beast appraising. If appraisal skill was really useful for beast appraising, then he would be rich. He had a country behind him. Whether he gave the magical beasts to the army or sold them for money, it would be of great help to Yanlong. Stop, no one is allowed to ride a horse into the city. The guards at the city gate stopped him. Didn't someone ride a magical beast into the city just now? Yi Hao looked displeased. If no one was allowed to ride a horse, Yi Hao wouldn't say anything. However, he clearly saw that everyone was riding a horse into the city. Why did they stop him? What made Yi Hao speechless was that Xiechunyu rode a blood wolf and swaggered into the city gate. The guards acted as if they didn't see her. I told you to get off the horse, so get off quickly. What's there to be arrogant about riding a rank 1 spiritual beast? The guard said firmly. At the same time, He looked at the guards behind Yi Hao with disdain. When Yi Hao looked back, he immediately understood what was going on. The reason being that the mounts of the martial emperor cavalry were ordinary horses, and most importantly, Yi Hao had asked them to conceal their cultivation, thus causing the guards to look down on them. "I'm going in on a horse today." Yi Hao wasn't going to let him have his way. How dare a small guard try to bully him? A cold smile appeared on the city guard's face. It seemed that Yi Hao's actions were exactly what he wanted. In his eyes, Yi Hao was just a country bumpkin with low strength. Each of them only had the strength of a martial artist, but their clothes were of good quality. The guard knew that the more he thought about these young masters, the more he would benefit from them. Most importantly, they were the easiest to bully. "Men, arrest these people for me. They still dare to cause trouble here." The guard shouted, and the rest of the guards immediately rushed up. At the same time, many people passed by the city gate, but they were not surprised. These guards usually spent a lot of money, so it was only right and proper for them to bully these low-level rich people. "Get out of my way." Yi Hao was slightly angered. He waved the horsewhip in his hand and a blast of energy hit the guard's body. The powerful force instantly tore apart the guard's level 1 spirit armor. The guard flew out and smashed heavily onto the city wall. He was deader than dead. Ding dong, thank you host for killing Wu Ho's rank 3 bodyguard. Host received 300 experience points and 1500 soul points. Yi Hao only got 300 experience points for killing a martial marquis soldier. 10,000 alpacas galloped in Yi Hao's heart. Currently, he was a martial king, so to upgrade to the second-order martial king, he needed more than 100,000 experience points. In other words, he had to kill more than 300 third-order martial marquis soldiers before he could upgrade by 1 level. Seeing Yi Hao attack, the martial king knight no longer hid his strength. He immediately exposed his aura and killed the few soldiers who rushed up. These people are actually martial kings. They hid their strength well. They have 7 martial kings as guards, and this young man is also a martial king. His background must not be weak. Now there's a good show to watch. These greedy guards are going to be unlucky. When the surrounding people saw Yi Hao kill a guard with a whip, they stopped and started to discuss. "Stop! Who dares to be impudent in Beast King City?" Suddenly, a middle-aged man who looked like a general galloped over on a level 4 spirit beast. "Brat, you dare to kill my Beast King City soldiers? You're courting death." Guoring Rue arrived at the city gate and saw 6 or 7 dead soldiers. He was furious. Holding a long sword, he rushed towards Yi Hao. Because these guards were his Guo family's people. "It's General Guo." General Guo is a level 5 martial king. His mount is also a level 1 martial king. These people are going to be unlucky. This brat is only a level 1 martial king. He doesn't even have a magic beast. He will lose without a doubt. The surrounding people thought that Yi Hao could teach these soldiers a lesson. No one expected Guo Yingrui to suddenly appear. Once again, they were not optimistic about Yi Hao. After all, a difference of 1 level was like heaven and earth, not to mention a difference of 4 levels. Furthermore, Guo Yingrui had a magic beast to help him. The difference between the two was even greater. Protect the young master. Several martial king knights were anxious and quickly urged their horses forward. Roar! Guo Yingrui's magic beast roared, scaring the horses of the knights. Their legs trembled and they did not dare to move forward. Ha ha ha! Look at their ordinary horses. They are so scared. The trembling of the horses naturally attracted the ridicule of everyone. The martial king knights were anxious. They immediately cursed at their horses. "Trash, brothers, abandon your horses." "Not only are horses trash, you are the same," Guo Yingrui said disdainfully when he saw the 7 people surrounding him. In an instant, 2 martial kings were sent flying by Guo Yingrui. "Good, General Guo is mighty." The remaining guards shouted loudly when they saw Guo Yingrui display his might. Yi Hao's fighting spirit and anger surged in his heart. All of you, retreat. Although the martial kings were unwilling, they knew that they were not Guo Yingrui's match. They could only retreat. Brat, not bad. You didn't run away. Lan Bao, go. Guo Yingrui did not chase after the martial kings who retreated. Instead, he looked at Yi Hao with interest. He suddenly jumped off his magic beast and issued an order to his magic beast. Guo Yingrui's magic beast was a rank 4, level 3 blue leopard. When it heard Guo Yingrui's order, the blue leopard drooled and quickly pounced on Yi Hao. The leopard's speed was already very fast. Its speed was comparable to a rank 4, level 5 magic beast. It was like a bolt of blue lightning, making it impossible to see its figure clearly. Guo Yingrui was full of confidence in his magic beast. No less than 4 or 5 beginner martial kings had died under the leopard's claws. He cupped his fists and quietly watched from the side. Hiss! Yi Hao's clothes were instantly torn by the blue leopard's claws. If not for the blood scar armor, Yi Hao would definitely have been injured. Although he had the blood scar armor, Yi Hao still took a few steps back. What fast speed! As expected of a leopard. Butterfly shadow steps. If he used his own speed, he could only fight the blue leopard to a draw. However, after using the butterfly shadow steps, the leopard's speed was simply too slow in his eyes. Rank 4 spiritual weapon. Guo Yingrui's eyes revealed a greedy look. To be able to block the leopard's attack and only have his clothes torn, other than a rank 4 spiritual weapon, he could not think of anything else. Humph, this spiritual weapon is mine. Even though he knew that Yi Hao had a rank 4 spiritual weapon, Guo Yingrui did not plan to make a move. He was full of confidence in the leopard's speed. Chapter 172. Die, evil creature. Yi Hao snorted coldly as the long saber in his hand tore through Lan Bao's body. Ding dong, congratulations to host for killing a rank 4, rank 3 magical beast. Reward, 3,000 experience points. Reward, 15,000 soul points. As Yi Hao's speed was too fast, in the eyes of the onlookers, it was as if Lan Bao had slammed into Yi Hao's long saber. Is Lan Bao stupid? Why is he slamming himself into the saber? The scene of Yi Hao being torn apart by Lan Bao did not happen. Instead, Lan Bao was easily killed by Yi Hao. No one dared to believe it. Brat, I'm going to tear you to shreds. Guo Yingrui could no longer maintain his composure. This Lan Bao was equivalent to his lifeblood. Now that Lan Bao was killed, it naturally caused him to be incomparably furious. He immediately pulled out his Tier 3 spirit weapon and was about to kill Yi Hao. Seizing Life 70, stop! Just as Yi Hao was about to use his martial skill, an old man suddenly rushed out of the city. Peak of Martial King. Yi Hao's heart tightened as he glanced at the old man. It's City Lord Song. Many people saw the old man and immediately knew his identity. The old man was the City Lord of Beast King City. He was usually amiable, but his battle strength was extremely terrifying. He was considered the #1 expert in Beast King City. However, the old man was from the Song family while Guo Yingrui was from the Guo family. The two families had their own duties, but they were not on good terms. Guo Yingrui's eyes flashed with dissatisfaction when he saw City Lord Song blocking his way. However, he was afraid of City Lord Song's strength and could only reluctantly stop. He asked in a displeased tone, "May I know what City Lord Song is doing here?" "General Guo, you're already an adult. Why lower yourself to the level of a child?" City Lord Song was not angry and asked with a chuckle. Originally, the crowd thought that City Lord Song would attack Yi Hao. No one expected City Lord Song to stand on Yi Hao's side. The crowd looked at Yi Hao suspiciously. Could it be that this young man has some powerful background? Even City Lord Song is afraid of him? Yi Hao was also puzzled. He had been prepared to fight a bloody battle. After all, it would be difficult for him to fight a peak martial king. However, it seemed that this old man, whom he had never seen before, was not his enemy. Guoring Rue was instantly enraged. He shouted, "Child? He killed my magical beast, so I must kill him today." The beast appraisal competition is in the next few days. General Guo, I think we should just let this matter rest, City Lord Song said with a flushed face. It was as though there wasn't a single trace of anger on his face. Others might not be able to sense it, but Guo Yingrui could. His eyes flashed with a thick killing intent. However, he was not a match for City Lord Song, so he could only force out a smile. In that case, City Lord Song, what should I do now that my demonic beast has been killed? City Lord Song looked troubled. He knew that he couldn't be too biased towards Yi Hao. After thinking for a while, he said, "As long as you don't make a move before the competition, I won't care about anything else. Brat, just you wait. I will kill you." Guoring Rue turned around and walked towards the city angrily. Deep down, he coveted Yi Hao's spiritual weapon, but he couldn't understand why City Lord Song was so biased towards Yi Hao. Now that he had City Lord Song's help, there was almost no chance for him to go against Yi Hao and snatch Yi Hao's spiritual weapon. However, once the competition was over, he would like to see how City Lord Song could stop him. "Thank you, City Lord Song." Although Yi Hao didn't know why City Lord Song was helping him, he still thanked him politely. "Little brother, you're welcome. If you have the chance, come visit my City Lord Manor." City Lord Song gave him a fist salute and left with a smile. "You guys, clean up the leopard. Tonight's dinner is settled. A Class 4 magical beast should taste pretty good." Yi Hao shook his head. He had originally thought that City Lord Song must have some business with him since he had taken action for him. However, City Lord Song didn't even speak to him. As for visiting the City Lord Manor, Yi Hao didn't even think about it. He was only interested in beast appraising. As for Guo Yingrui finding trouble with him again, he would just kill him directly. The meat and blood of magical beasts were great nourishment for warriors. Yi Hao didn't enter the city. Instead, he started barbecuing at the city gate. Ugh, this kid is too arrogant. What kind of background does he have? He killed General Guo's magical beast and didn't even let it go. He's actually barbecuing it. The surrounding people couldn't believe their eyes. They watched as Yi Hao's subordinates skillfully cleaned up the magical beast and handed it to Yi Hao. Yi Hao then started barbecuing it. Guoring Rue was in the city when he suddenly remembered his magical beast's corpse. Even if the magical beast was dead, a rank 4 magical beast's corpse was still quite valuable. Just as he was about to order his subordinates to bring the blue leopard's corpse back to his manor, he heard his subordinates report. "What? This is infuriating. How dare he provoke me in public?" When Guo Yingrui heard that Yi Hao had actually barbecued his magical beast at the city gate, he was instantly enraged and almost fainted from anger. "General, what should we do now?" A guard quickly went forward to support Guo Yingrui and asked carefully. Guo Yingrui calmed the anger in his heart. "Send a few people to keep an eye on that kid. Don't let him escape." Just as the guard left, another servant came and reported, "General, Master wants you to return." After Yi Hao finished barbecuing, he ignored the surrounding crowd and started eating. Yi Hao took a bite and couldn't help but praise from the bottom of his heart. This rank 4 magical beast's meat was much more fragrant than the ordinary magical beast meat he had eaten. As Yi Hao ate the magical beast, he could clearly feel that his body was changing a little. Although it couldn't be compared to eating dragon meat, it could strengthen his physique. Even a little bit was good. Yi Hao had asked the weapon spirit of Dragon Prison Lake and a few martial king knight. He discovered that when ordinary people ate magical beast meat, they didn't have such a feeling. If ordinary people wanted to strengthen their physique, they would either train or eat elixirs. Elixirs made from magical beast's blood essence were much more effective than elixirs of the same level. Therefore, every time Yi Hao ate a magical beast's blood essence, he would collect it in case he needed it in the future. However, there was one thing that Yi Hao could clearly feel. When others ate magical beast meat, they couldn't feel their physique strengthening. Yi Hao guessed that this was the effect of the innate sacred martial spirit. Great. You guys are secretly eating barbecued meat here without me. Xie Chunyu was carrying a purple umbrella and squeezed into the crowd. She sniffed her cute nose and said, "Other than you, no one else can make the meat so fragrant." Yi Hao was about to speak when he saw a beautiful girl behind Xie Chunyu. "This is..." Song Feifei blinked her long eyelashes and looked at the barbecued meat in Yi Hao's hand. She said playfully, "Hello, I'm Song Feifei." When she smiled, she looked like a blooming flower. Yi Hao was stunned. Chapter 173. Greetings, Father. Guoringrui returned to the mansion and bowed respectfully to the old man sitting on the throne. The old man smiled and looked at Guoringrui. "What's wrong? Why is the great general of the Beast King city so angry? Aren't you afraid of being ridiculed? What did I teach you? You have to learn not to show your emotions." Father is right. Guoringrui bowed again and forced a smile on his face. "Tell me about it." The old man took a sip of tea and asked softly. "Father, my lawn bao." Guoringrui looked at the old man in fear and didn't dare to speak. The Guo family had spent a lot of money to get this lawn bao. Back then, his father had used some means to get this lawn bao. It was because of this lawn bao that his position as the great general of the Beast King city was firmly secured. "What's wrong with Lan Bao? He's sick. Why aren't you sending him for treatment?" The old man raised his eyes slightly. Guoringrui's expression became even worse, but he still said, "Father, Lan Bao was killed." Pa, the teacup in the old man's hand fell to the ground and shattered. The old man looked at Guoringrui in shock. "What did you say?" "Father, your son is incompetent. Lan Bao was killed." Guoringrui quickly knelt on the ground. He was still very afraid of the old man in his heart. "Please punish me, father." The servant girl beside him immediately cleaned up the broken teacup. The old man also returned to normal. Who did it? Was it old man Song? No, it was a young boy. Because he killed our family's soldiers, I asked Lan Bao to teach him a lesson. Who knew that Lan Bao would be killed? Just as I was about to kill that boy, old man Song appeared. Guoringrui's face was filled with unwillingness. When he thought of Yi Hao roasting his Lan Bao at the city gate, his heart began to bleed. Pa, a loud slap sounded on Guoringrui's face. Guoringrui knew that it was his father who did it and quickly lowered his head. "Do you know why I hit you?" the old man asked faintly. It's my fault for not protecting Lan Bao," Guoringrui quickly said. "Pa, idiot." The old man slapped Guoringrui again and scolded him angrily. The old man looked at Guoringrui, who was kneeling on the ground. His eyes were filled with disappointment. "So what if the blue leopard is dead? No matter how high the level of a magical beast is, it is only our tool. If it dies, then it dies. Father is worried about your life." Seeing that Guoringrui was still puzzled, the old man asked again, "Between you and Lan Bao, whose combat strength is stronger? If we don't talk about speed, your son is slightly better." "But..." Guoringrui looked at the old man in shock. "Father, you're saying that the bastard is stronger than me." Guoringrui hurriedly recalled the moment Lan Bao died. The more he thought about it, the more scared he became. At first, he also thought that Yi Hao was a blind cat running into a dead mouse, and that Lan Bao accidentally bumped into Yi Hao's blade. But how could there be such a thing in the world? And based on his understanding of Lan Bao, it was almost impossible. There was only one possibility. Yi Hao's speed was faster than Lan Bao, so fast that even he couldn't see it. No wonder that brat dares to be so arrogant. Guoringrui thought about how Yi Hao was roasting his Lan Bao at the city gate. This proved his guess even more. Father, your son is not satisfied. Please take action. Thinking about Lan Bao's death, Guo couldn't take it lying down. That brat must have some kind of martial technique that increases his speed. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to be so fast. Guo was absolutely certain that he wasn't mistaken about Yi Hao's aura. When the old man heard Guo words, he was also tempted. What's that brat's level? First level martial king. Guo answered honestly. A look of greed appeared on the old man's face. Even you can't see the speed of a first-level martial king. I'm also envious of that martial technique. Guo knew that his plan to deal with Yi Hao on his own was definitely not going to work. He could only pin his hopes on his father. After all, if his father benefited, he would benefit as well. Guo didn't hide the fact that Yi Hao had a rank 4 spiritual weapon on him. He quickly told the old man about it. Although our Guo family has a set of rank 4 spiritual weapons as well, who would complain about having too many good things? The old man wanted to kill Yi Hao. Moreover, even if Yi Hao didn't have any treasures on him, he would still have to take action. His son was a general of Beast King City. Now that even his demonic beast had been killed, if he didn't do something about it, where would the Guo family put their face? But with City Lord Song standing in the way, he was still a little wary. How about this? Since that brat came to our Beast King City, he must be interested in beast appraising. Send someone to invite him to the beast appraisal competition. If he doesn't agree, it means that he's not giving me face. When the time comes, it'll be easier for me to take action. Narrowing his eyes, the old man quickly came up with a reason. Whether Yi Hao participated in the beast appraisal competition or not, the Guo family would be able to regain their dignity. If Yi Hao didn't participate, then he would directly kill Yi Hao. If an outsider didn't give him face, then it was the same as slapping the Beast King City in the face. He believed that City Lord Song wouldn't stop him. Moreover, if Yi Hao participated in the beast appraisal competition, it would be even better. Those who could participate in the beast appraisal competition were all accomplished individuals. What could a young brat like Yi Hao appraise? He would only embarrass himself. But father, the champion of the beast appraisal competition, can get him into the Beast King sect. If that brat takes this spot, wouldn't we suffer a huge loss? Guo asked worriedly. The old man chuckled. Do you think it's that easy to get first place in beast appraisal? Forget about the beast appraisers. Our family is focusing on nurturing this time. Just those random beast appraisers are enough to crush that brat. Guo was slightly relieved this time. At the thought of the Beast King sect spot, Guo quickly asked, Father, how are our family's preparations for the beast appraisal competition coming along? Don't worry, the best one is able to appraise 50% out of 100 living eggs. The remaining ones are at least 30%. The old man smiled in relief. Guo was shocked and in disbelief. How is that possible? If it's that high, doesn't that mean we're sure to win? 80% of magical beast eggs were dead. This was only to console those who were obsessed with beast appraising. If a person could pick out one living egg from 10 magical beast eggs, that person would be considered lucky and wouldn't be at a disadvantage. To be able to appraise 2 out of 10 eggs, that person must be an experienced beast appraiser other than being lucky. To be able to achieve 30%, that person was basically a master. 40% meant that the person was an elite among masters. And 50% meant that out of 2 eggs, one of them would be a living egg. What a terrifying probability this was. One could only imagine how amazing that person was. Chapter 174. Father, doesn't that mean we'll win for sure? The excitement on Guo face was self-evident. He had been waiting for this day for far too long. Unfortunately, he didn't have any talent in beast appraising. Joining the Thousand Beasts sect was something he had always dreamed of. Fortunately, the disciples of the clan were also very eager to join the Thousand Beasts sect. Therefore, the disciples of the clan were very hard-working. Usually, it was harder than ascending to heaven for others to enter the Thousand Beasts sect. This year, for some reason, the Thousand Beasts sect suddenly gave Beast King City a slot. As long as they won first place in the Beast Appraisal competition, they would immediately become an outer disciple of the Thousand Beasts sect. This year's Beast Appraisal competition was exceptionally grand. After all, everyone wanted to join the Thousand Beasts sect. A family's foundation couldn't be compared to a sect's. A sect wasn't much weaker than a country. Some even held the fate of several countries in their hand. By the way, Father, why did you call me here? Concealing the excitement in his heart, Guo Yingrui asked in puzzlement. The old man's face tensed up. An ancient ruin is about to open. An ancient ruin? Where is it? Guo Yingrui asked nervously and excitedly. An ancient ruin was a treasure trove left behind by an ancient powerhouse. The treasures inside could definitely make a family soar. After the Beast Appraisal competition. But according to the records, that ruin can only be entered by those under the age of 20. The old man's face darkened. More importantly, this ruin has appeared several times but no one has obtained it. Many major forces have also received news of it. That's not good news for us. Guo Yingrui's face tensed up. Suddenly, realization dawned on him. I was wondering why that old thing would save that kid. Looks like he had made up his mind to let that kid protect his family while he went in himself. In his eyes, Yi Hao definitely wasn't 20 yet. He was also a martial king, much stronger than the Guo family's younger generation. The Beast Appraisal competition is the most important thing. Although the chances of entering an ancient ruin are slim, it's still better to pick a few decent disciples. When the time comes, they'll have to rely on the disciples of large factions to enter together. Whether or not they'll be able to reap any benefits will all depend on luck. The old man didn't place his hopes on the ancient ruin. This was because he knew that the youngest disciple in his family was only a first-level martial king. His chances of competing with those big forces were too slim. The benefits of joining the Thousand Beasts sect were real, and he was basically in control of it. At night, Yi Hao rejected Song Shanshan's request. Instead, he led his subordinates to look for a restaurant. After all, he had only met Song Shanshan once. If he went to stay at someone else's house, Yi Hao felt that it was inappropriate. Moreover, Yi Hao guessed that Song Shanshan was City Lord Song's family. Yi Hao admitted that he did not have that much charisma when City Lord Song came to help him for no reason. The 10,000 Kingdoms continent was a world of cannibalism. Who would offend someone for an outsider they did not know? Hence, if Yi Hao could avoid having anything to do with City Lord Song, he would try his best to do so. I'm sorry, our restaurant is full. After asking 4 or 5 restaurants in a row, all the guest rooms were full. Damn, don't tell me we're going to sleep on the streets. Yi Hao and the guards looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Xie Chunyu, that wretched girl, she's too disloyal. She went to enjoy herself and left me on the street. Yi Hao was a little envious of Xie Chunyu. If he had known, he would have stayed at Song Shanshan's house. It was better than staying on the street. At this moment, a servant saw Yi Hao and his group from afar and immediately ran over while panting. You must be young Master Xia. Xia Hao was the name Yi Hao had made up. In order to avoid the investigation of Zimo, Er's family, Yi Hao had to be careful. Yes. Yi Hao smiled and nodded. The servant's face lit up and he hurriedly wiped the sweat on his head. Young Master Xia, you've really made me look for you. I thought you were gone. Yi Hao's head was instantly filled with black lines. He ignored the servant and looked at him. I don't know who you are and why are you looking for me? Young Master Xia, most of the restaurants in the city are full recently. Moreover, you've offended General Guo, so no restaurant dares to let you stay. The servant continued. Yi Hao came to a sudden realization. No wonder so many restaurant owners had expressions of admiration and fear when they saw him. It was because of Guo Yingrui. It seemed like the Guo family had a pretty good position in Beast King City. Your young lady is Song Shanshan, right? Yi Hao then saw that there was a black Song character embroidered on the servant's chest. He did not notice it at first. Moreover, in this Beast King City, other than Song Shanshan, Yi Hao did not know any other young ladies. Moreover, there was only one family with the surname Song. How did you know? I didn't tell you. The servant was obviously an idiot. He looked at Yi Hao in confusion. Don't you have the Song character embroidered on your chest? Yi Hao chuckled and looked at the servant. The servant scratched his head in embarrassment. After looking at so many restaurants, Yi Hao was too lazy to continue looking. He could only go to the Song family with the servant. Didn't you say you weren't coming? Our young master Xia Chunyu seemed to have known that Yi Hao would come. She was already waiting at the door. However, Song Shanshan was not here. Yi Hao completely ignored Xie Chunyu and walked straight into the Song family's residence. Yi Hao didn't want to talk to Xie Chunyu. Otherwise, he didn't know how this girl would find ways to mock him. He did not want to trouble Song Shanshan, who knew that there was not even a single restaurant. It was really out of his expectations. According to Yi Hao's understanding, Xie Chunyu would definitely not let go of the opportunity to attack him. Who knew that this girl would be so vengeful? It was because Guan Yu had sealed her cultivation. Of course, the seal had been released long ago. However, she was still brooding over it. She could not find a chance to take revenge, and wanted to eat Yi Hao's barbecued meat. She could only rely on the power of her mouth to attack Yi Hao. However, Yi Hao had the foresight to directly ignore Xie Chunyu, making her plan to ridicule Yi Hao for half a day in vain. In the end, all her plans were ruined. Humph! Xie Chunyu stood behind and stomped her feet. Then, she followed him angrily. Little brother Xia is here. Please take a seat. Yi Hao was led to the Song family's guest hall by the servant. City Lord Song seemed to have been waiting for a long time. Greetings, City Lord Song. Yi Hao smiled and greeted him. Humph, you have no manners at all, a middle-aged man said unhappily when he saw Yi Hao's actions. Shut up. City Lord Song looked at his second son unhappily. Father, I'm not feeling well. I'll take my leave first. Song Dai did not dare to disobey City Lord Song. He pursed his lips and left. Little brother Xia, you must be joking. It's all my fault for not teaching my son well. City Lord Song did not stop his son from leaving. Instead, he looked at Yi Hao with a smile. Chapter 175. Only Xie Chunyu, Song Shanshan and City Lord Song were left in the living room of the Song mansion. Yi Hao had already gone to rest. Young miss, this brat is too hard to read. City Lord Song looked at Xie Chunyu and said helplessly. The harder it is to read, the more shocking it is. Otherwise, what use would we have for him? Xie Chunyu sat on the main seat and said with a frown. This brat is indeed a talent. City Lord Song nodded in agreement. But it is not easy to control such a person. The harder it is to control, the greater the impact on the Thousand Beasts sect. When Xie Chunyu mentioned the Thousand Beasts sect, her eyes flashed with hatred. Young Miss Yuan. Shut up, don't mention him again. Xie Chunyu's face was filled with sentimentality and hatred when she heard City Lord Song's words. She immediately shouted. Seeing Xie Chunyu's expression, City Lord Song could not help but feel sorry for her. Song Shanshan quickly said in a gentle voice, Sister Chunyu, what difficulties does Brother Yuan have? Difficulties? Ha ha! Xie Chunyu suddenly stood up and said with a cold smile, His difficulties are that he killed my father? His difficulties are that he became the peak master of the Thousand Beasts sect's Beast Blood Peak and the last disciple of the sect master? Xie Chunyu said with heartache. The hatred in her eyes made the two of them speechless. What Xie Chunyu said was the truth. I will definitely use this spiritual umbrella he gave me to kill him with my own hands. I will clean up the sect for my father and pay tribute to my father's soul in heaven. Xie Chunyu pulled out her beloved umbrella from her back, because it was a gift from the person she loved. However, the senior brother who took care of her since she was young, the senior brother who was filial to her father since she was young, had killed her father right under her nose. The dreams and future she had intertwined for so many years had collapsed in an instant. Therefore, she left with hatred. She only wanted to leave this place until she had enough strength to return and kill that ingrate with her own hands. However, who would have thought that she would mistakenly think that Yi Hao was a bad person, and as a result, Guan Yu sealed her cultivation. What shocked her was that Yi Hao was only the emperor of a duchy, but he actually had a martial venerable under him. Based on her intuition, Yi Hao either had a heaven-shaking method or was hiding a heaven-shaking secret on his body. But along the way, no matter how hard he tried to get information out of Yi Hao, he just couldn't get any information out of him. As for those guards, they were simply like blocks of wood. Apart from Yi Hao, they didn't pay any attention to anyone else. And the reason Yi Hao was able to come to Beast King City was mostly because of her plan. Otherwise, how could Yi Hao be so coincidental as to pass by Beast King City while heading west? Why didn't she stop and directly enter Beast King City? If she had only needed to say a word, that guard definitely wouldn't have dared to stop Yi Hao. It was because she wanted to discuss a strategy with City Lord Song. This City Lord Song was her father's subordinate many years ago. Fortunately, he was very loyal to her father. That was why he stepped forward to help Yi Hao. But actually, City Lord Song had also arrived at the instant when Guo Yingrui arrived. However, he wanted to wait until Yi Hao was in danger before he stepped in to save him. That way, it would be equivalent to saving Yi Hao's life. Furthermore, he also wanted to test out Yi Hao's strength. However, Yi Hao's strength was beyond his expectations. Yi Hao's speed was actually above that of an 8th-level martial king. He instantly killed Lan Bao. He didn't step in to save Yi Hao. Instead, he was afraid that Yi Hao would kill Guo Yingrui. At that time, the Guo family would step in and they wouldn't be able to save Yi Hao. At that time, Xie Chunyu's plan would be ruined. Furthermore, half of the reason why Yi Hao couldn't find the restaurant was because of the Song family's interference. After all, there were so many restaurants in the Beast King City. A majority of them belonged to the Song family. There were also other powers. No matter how powerful the Guo family was, it was impossible for them to manage the Song family's restaurants. Originally, they had brought Yi Hao to the Song residence in hopes of using the Guo family's power to scare Yi Hao. Who would have thought that this brat didn't take them seriously at all? Furthermore, he didn't act according to common sense. Only then did they realize that controlling Yi Hao and making Yi Hao do things for them was incomparably difficult. "Miss, what should we do next?" City Lord Song asked when he saw the hatred on Xie Chunyu's face. Xie Chunyu placed the purple umbrella behind her back. She frowned and started to think of a strategy. Suddenly, she looked at Song Shanshan and a sharp light flashed in her eyes. "Why are you looking at me?" Song Shanshan met Xie Chunyu's fiery gaze and lowered her head in panic. "Shanshan, what do you think of Xia Hao?" Xie Chunyu grabbed Song Shanshan's soft and smooth hand and asked softly. Song Shanshan thought for a moment and said, "The meat he barbecued is very delicious. All you think about is eating." Xie Chunyu gently knocked Song Shanshan's head. Song Shanshan hugged her cute head in pain and said unhappily, "Aren't you better at eating than me? Why are you still talking about me?" "Humph." Xie Chunyu's face turned red at Song Shanshan's words. She quickly defended herself and said, "That's because the meat is delicious. It has nothing to do with the meat he barbecued. If it was me, it would definitely be better than his." Song Shanshan curled her lips and mercilessly attacked. I don't know who barbecued meat in the past. Later on, it was Yuan, Shan Shan? City Lord Song immediately glared at Song Shanshan angrily. Song Shanshan knew that she had said something wrong. She stuck out her cute tongue and played with the corner of her clothes. She secretly looked at Xie Chunyu and said carefully, "Sister Chunyu, I didn't do it on purpose." Xie Chunyu patted Song Shanshan's head and forced a smile on her face. She asked softly, "Does it hurt?" Song Shanshan quickly shook her head. "Shanshan, can you do me a favor?" Xie Chunyu held Song Shanshan's hand and looked into her eyes as she asked eagerly. As it touched on Xie Chunyu's sore spot, Song Shanshan was very embarrassed. She quickly said, "Sister Chunyu, just say it. I'll agree to any of your requests as long as you don't get angry at me." "Grandpa Song, I want Shanshan to use her beauty to seduce Xia Hao. You don't have any objections, right?" Xie Chunyu looked at City Lord Song and asked. City Lord Song's heart tightened. After all, Song Shanshan was his granddaughter whom he loved dearly. Now that his granddaughter was going to be used as a chess piece, he felt very uncomfortable. However, he had been loyal to peak leader Xie all his life. Furthermore, Xie Chunyu was peak leader Xie's only bloodline. Logically speaking, he would agree to all of her requests, even if it meant sacrificing his life. However, Song Shanshan was his precious granddaughter. He could not bear to part with her at all. "You want me to use my beauty to seduce Brother Xia?" Song Shanshan seemed to have recovered from her shock. She asked in a puzzled voice, "Can't we just tell Brother Xia? Brother Xia is such a good person. He will definitely help us." "How do you know that he is a good person?" City Lord Song and Xie Chunyu looked at Song Shanshan with puzzled eyes. Chapter 176. Only Xie Chunyu, Song Shanshan, and City Lord Song were left in the living room of the Song residence. Yi Hao had already gone to rest. "Young miss, this brat's thoughts are too hard to read." City Lord Song looked at Xie Chunyu and said helplessly, "The harder it is to read, the more shocking it is. Otherwise, what use would we have for him?" Xie Chunyu sat on the main seat and said with a frown, "This brat is indeed a talent." City Lord Song nodded in agreement. However, he was still very worried. But it is not easy to control such a person. The harder it is to control, the greater the impact on the Thousand Beasts sect. When Xie Chunyu mentioned the Thousand Beasts sect, her eyes flashed with hatred. "Young Miss Yuan. Shut up, don't mention him again." Xie Chunyu's face was filled with sadness and hatred when she heard City Lord Song's words. She immediately shouted. Seeing Xie Chunyu's appearance, City Lord Song could not help but feel sorry for her. Song Shanshan quickly said in a gentle voice, "Sister Chunyu, what difficulties does Big Brother Yuan have?" "Difficulties? Ha ha." Xie Chunyu suddenly stood up and said with a cold smile, "The difficulties are that he killed my father? The difficulties are that he became the peak master of the Thousand Beasts sect's Beast Blood Mountain and the sect master's last disciple?" Xie Chunyu said with heartache. The hatred in her eyes made the two of them speechless. What Xie Chunyu said was the truth. "I will definitely use this spiritual umbrella. He gave me to kill him with my own hands. I will clean up the sect for my father and pay tribute to my father's soul in heaven." Xie Chunyu pulled out the beloved purple umbrella behind her back because it was given to her by the person she loved. However, the senior brother who had taken care of her since she was young, the senior brother who had been filial to her father since she was young, had killed her father right under her nose. This caused her dreams and future to crumble in an instant. Therefore, she left with hatred. She only wanted to leave this place until she had enough strength to return and kill that ingrate with her own hands. However, Xie Chunyu did not expect that due to a freak combination of factors, she had mistakenly thought that Yi Hao was a bad person. In the end, her cultivation had been sealed by Guan Yu. What shocked her the most was that Yi Hao, who was only the emperor of a duchy, actually had a martial saint expert as his subordinate. Based on her intuition, Yi Hao either had a heaven-shaking method, or he was hiding a heaven-shaking secret. But along the way, no matter how hard she tried to get information out of Yi Hao, she just couldn't get any information out of him. As for those guards, they were simply like blocks of wood. Other than Yi Hao, they didn't care about anyone else's words. This caused Xie Chunyu to suffer a lot. And the reason Yi Hao was able to come to Beast King City was mostly because of her plan. Otherwise, how could Yi Hao be so coincidental as to pass by Beast King City while heading west? Why didn't she stop and directly enter Beast King City? If she had only needed to say a word, that guard definitely wouldn't have dared to stop Yi Hao. It was because she wanted to discuss a strategy with City Lord Song. City Lord Song was her father's subordinate many years ago. Fortunately, he was very loyal to her father. That was why he stepped forward to help Yi Hao. But in fact, City Lord Song had arrived at the same time as Guo Yingrui. However, he wanted to wait until Yi Hao was in danger before he stepped in to save him. That way, it would be equivalent to him saving Yi Hao's life. Moreover, he also wanted to test Yi Hao's strength. But Yi Hao's strength was beyond his expectations. Yi Hao's speed was actually above that of an 8th-level martial king. He instantly killed Lan Bao. He did not step in to save Yi Hao. Instead, he was afraid that Yi Hao would kill Guo Yingrui. If the Guo family intervened, they would not be able to save Yi Hao. At that time, Xie Chunyu's plan would fail. Moreover, half of the reason why Yi Hao could not find the restaurant was because of the Song family. After all, there were so many restaurants in the Beast King City. Most of them belonged to the Song family. There were also other forces. No matter how powerful the Guo family was, it was impossible for them to control the Song family's restaurants. Originally, they had brought Yi Hao to the Song residence in hopes of using the Guo family's power to scare Yi Hao, who knew that this brat did not take them seriously at all. Moreover, he did not play by the rules. Only then did they realize that it was extremely difficult to control Yi Hao and make Yi Hao work for them. "Miss, what should we do next?" City Lord Song asked when he saw the hatred on Xie Chunyu's face. Xie Chunyu carried the purple umbrella behind her back. She frowned and started to think of a plan. Suddenly, she looked at Song Shanshan and her eyes flashed. "Sister Shanshan, why are you looking at me?" Song Shanshan met Xie Chunyu's fiery gaze and lowered her head in panic. "Shanshan, what do you think of Xia Hao?" Xie Chunyu grabbed Song Shanshan's soft and smooth hand and asked softly. Song Shanshan thought for a moment and licked her cute tongue. She swallowed her saliva and said, "The meat he barbecued is very delicious. All you think about is eating." Xie Chunyu was exasperated. She knocked Song Shanshan's head lightly. Song Shanshan hugged her cute head in pain and said unhappily, "Aren't you better at eating than me? Why are you scolding me?" "Humph." Xie Chunyu's face turned red when she heard Song Shanshan's words. She quickly explained, "That's because the meat is delicious. It has nothing to do with him barbecuing. If it was me, it would definitely be better." Song Shanshan curled her lips and mercilessly attacked. "I don't know who barbecued meat in the past. Later, it was Yuan, Shanshan?" City Lord Song immediately glared at Song Shanshan angrily. Song Shanshan knew that she had said something wrong. She stuck out her cute tongue and played with the corner of her clothes. She secretly looked at Xie Chunyu and said carefully, "Sister Chunyu, I didn't do it on purpose." Xie Chunyu patted Song Shanshan's head and forced a smile. She asked softly, "Does it hurt?" Song Shanshan quickly shook her head. "Shanshan, can you do me a favor?" Xie Chunyu held Song Shanshan's hand and looked into her eyes. She asked eagerly. Song Shanshan was very embarrassed because she had touched on Xie Chunyu's sore spot. She quickly said, "Sister Chunyu, just say it." I'll agree to any of your requests as long as you don't get angry at me. Grandpa Song, I want Shanshan to use her beauty to seduce Xia Hao. You don't have any objections, right? Xie Chunyu looked at City Lord Song and asked. City Lord Song's heart tightened. After all, Song Shanshan was his granddaughter. Now that his granddaughter was going to be used as a chess piece, he felt very uncomfortable. However, he had been loyal to peak leader Xie all his life. Moreover, Xie Chunyu was peak leader Xie's only bloodline. Logically, he would agree to any request, even if it meant sacrificing his life. However, Song Shanshan was his precious granddaughter. He could not bear to part with her. You want me to use my beauty to seduce Brother Xia? Song Shanshan seemed to have recovered from her shock. She asked in confusion, Can't we just tell Brother Xia? Brother Xia is such a good person. He will definitely help us. How do you know that he is a good person? City Lord Song and Xie Chunyu looked at Song Shanshan with puzzled eyes. Chapter 177. Because he barbecued meat for me. Song Shanshan thought for a moment. She didn't know why she would say that Yi Hao was a good person. In a flash of inspiration, she brought up the topic of barbecued meat again. Xie Chunyu had the urge to bang her head against the wall. She was really worried about whether her decision to let Song Shanshan use her beauty was the right one. She had a feeling that if Yi Hao gave Song Shanshan a piece of barbecued meat, Song Shanshan would run after Yi Hao. Shanshan, are you willing? Even if you're not, I won't force you, Xie Chunyu asked again. Song Shanshan hesitated and looked at City Lord Song. City Lord Song smiled and said, Shanshan, I'll leave this matter to you. Grandfather won't interfere with your decision. You're all grown up now. Song Shanshan lowered her head, fiddling with the corner of her shirt with her fair little hands. Her eyes kept sneaking glances at the two of them. The two of them were also looking forward to seeing what decision Song Shanshan would make. Song Shanshan said coquettishly, her voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. Her face was a little flushed. But I don't know how to use my beauty. It's okay, big sister will teach you. Xie Chunyu was overjoyed. With a smile on her face, she held Song Shanshan's hand again, and said enthusiastically. City Lord Song shook his head. Since Song Shanshan had already decided, he shouldn't interfere. He only hoped that Yi Hao wouldn't do anything out of line. Otherwise, he wouldn't let Yi Hao off the hook. Grandfather Song, I wonder if our people are ready for the beast appraisal competition? Xie Chunyu whispered into Song Shanshan's ear and suddenly asked. Don't worry. Young Mississippi, upon hearing Xie Chunyu's question, City Lord Song immediately replied confidently, The one we're sending this time is Master Shui. He'll definitely win first place. Xie Chunyu was curious. Is this Master Shui very good at beast appraising? City Lord Song noticed Xie Chunyu's question and explained with a smile. This Master Shui's ability to appraise live eggs has reached 40%. It's infinitely close to 50%. That's amazing. Xie Chunyu was surprised. For the sake of young Mrs. Plan, this old man will naturally do his best. Seeing Xie Chunyu's astonishment, City Lord Song finally felt some comfort in his heart. City Lord Song spoke again. Miss, that Xia Hao insisted on participating in the beast appraisal competition. Do you think he's afraid of the Guo family, or does he really know how to appraise? Yi Hao's silhouette appeared in Xie Chunyu's mind. After interacting with him for so many days, she refused to believe that Yi Hao would participate in the beast appraisal competition out of fear of the Guo family. Moreover, she knew that Yi Hao knew nothing about beast appraising. Hence, she couldn't figure out Yi Hao's motive for attending the beast appraisal competition at the moment. Since he wants to participate, then let him participate. Let's see how he embarrasses himself. Xie Chunyu could already see Yi Hao making a fool of himself. The beast appraisal competition wasn't something that could be won by luck alone. It required the accumulation of time and true ability. She estimated that Yi Hao might even be eliminated in the first round. Grandpa, Sister Chunyu, should we persuade Brother Xia again? Yi Hao returned to his room and quickly closed the door. From his space, he took out the pet egg he obtained from killing the Dark Knight Heavenly Wolf. Whether or not the probing skill works depends on you. Yi Hao knew that the system wouldn't just let him participate in the beast appraisal competition. There must be more to it. Hence, Yi Hao was anxious to find out if the probing skill was useful in beast appraising. Could it be used to check the pet egg? Ding dong, probing failed. Ding dong, probing failed. After using the probing skill several times in a row, he failed every single time. Yi Hao was disappointed. Could it be that the probing skill doesn't work on magical beast eggs? Yi Hao refused to give up. He tried one last time. Ding dong, probing successful. Rank 5 magical beast, Dark Knight Heavenly Wolf, live egg. It really works. That's great. Yi Hao was stunned when he heard the system's notification. Then, he immediately jumped up in joy. Soon, Yi Hao lay on his bed, deep in thought, and came to a conclusion. The probing skill could detect all sorts of things, but just like probing a person's level, probing a magical beast's egg was also limited. That was why Yi Hao failed so many times when probing the Dark Knight Heavenly Wolf. However, Yi Hao finally knew that the probing skill was useful for magical beast eggs. This gave Yi Hao some confidence that he wouldn't embarrass himself in the beast appraisal competition. The next day, under Song Shanshan's pestering, Yi Hao had no choice but to go out and play with her for the whole day. Yi Hao also tested his probing skill while he was at it. Brother Xia, wake up quickly. The beast appraisal competition is starting today. Early in the morning, Song Shanshan ran to Yi Hao's door and shouted. Yi Hao opened his sleepy eyes and answered, "Coming." "You silly girl, why have you been pestering me for the past few days? Don't you need to cultivate?" Yi Hao looked at Song Shanshan, speechless. He had only met Xie Chunyu a few times ever since he arrived at the Song Manor. Instead, this Song Shanshan kept waking him up every day. Song Shanshan's face was slightly red as she said indignantly, "Aren't you also not cultivating? Moreover, my level isn't any lower than yours." Yi Hao was speechless. It was his fault for not being able to cultivate. Otherwise, he wouldn't be wasting his time here. However, if he wanted to level up, other than killing monsters and completing the system's missions, there was no other way. And Song Shanshan's cultivation level was even more of a blow to him. In the Yen Dragon country, for someone as young as him to reach the Martial King realm, he was basically a genius. And this Song Shanshan, who was even younger than him, had actually reached the Martial King realm. Although Yi Hao was confident that he could defeat Song Shanshan in an instant, he couldn't help but sigh at the difference between regions. Even if they had the same level of talent, living in a level 10 area and a level 1 area were worlds apart. The Beast King City was located in a level 7 area. Its martial power was much stronger than that of Yen Long Country. For example, the people of Yen Long Country could cultivate to the level of a martial general. As for the ordinary people of the Beast King City, they could become martial generals as long as they slept. This was the difference between the regions of the 10,000 countries continent. The difference in martial power between each region was huge. Otherwise, the level 1 areas of the 10,000 countries continent wouldn't be occupied by the powerful forces of the 10,000 countries continent. Of course, other than the regions, there would also be some treasured lands. They would exist in any region and could also increase the speed of cultivation by several times. For example, the Thousand Beasts sect was a treasured land. Although it appeared in the level 7 area, even some countries and forces in the level 5 area might not be able to match up to the Thousand Beasts sect's strength. This was because the Thousand Beasts sect occupied a treasured land. The martial power in the Thousand Beasts sect's territory was comparable to the martial power in the level 5 area. Chapter 178. Furthermore, the higher one's realm, the longer one's lifespan would be. In the myriad kingdom continent, everyone wanted to reach a higher realm and reach the legendary realm of immortality. This was also the reason why some people were willing to be a nobody in a place where martial arts were rich, rather than running to a place where martial arts were scarce and becoming an emperor. Everyone wanted to fly higher, everyone wanted to go further. Just like in the Yi country of the past, many generations of people had spent their entire lives, but the strongest person had not reached the level of a general. If not for the help of other powers, those princes would not have been able to reach the level of a general. At that time, although Yi Batian had countless treasures, they could not buy good cultivation resources. The cultivation resources of a lifetime might not even be as many as the cultivation resources that Song Shanshan, the daughter of the city lord's family, had seen. This might be what people meant by man wants to go higher, water flows down. However, what the people of the myriad kingdom continent needed was strength. Furthermore, there were some people who did not understand the outside world at all. Furthermore, if they wanted to go higher, without certain opportunities and skills, they might die halfway. Just like Yi Hao, if not for the help of the system, he might have to stay in the Yi country for the rest of his life. At most, he would be able to guard a few cities and be the emperor of a principality. His cultivation would only be below that of a general for the rest of his life, and he would have to worry about being destroyed by others every day. Furthermore, if a person did not have the ability, he would not be able to go higher. If Yi Hao was not a martial king, even if he went to the Beast King city, he would only be bullied. Otherwise, those guards would not have gone to find trouble with him. And for people who were used to staying in a high-level area, it was very difficult for them to go to a low-level area because it was incomparably difficult to cultivate in a low-level area. Furthermore, the cultivation resources in a high-level area were not something that a low-level area could compare to. This was also the reason why the guards in the Beast King city were all Wu Ho, but they were unwilling to go to a low-level area to develop. If they went to a low-level area to develop, they might be able to obtain some glory and wealth. However, the scarcity of martial arts in the air would make them go crazy, and they would lose the chance to become strong. If they were unlucky, they might have been annihilated by the forces behind them. For example, if Wu Ho were to bully Yanlong country, the Fiend Spirit country and the Fire Empire would definitely not sit by and do nothing. Could one Wu Ho fight against them? Therefore, everyone wanted to develop in a better area. This was also the reason why there were so many people fighting for a spot as an outer disciple of the Thousand Beasts sect. This was because it was extremely difficult for a person to go to a higher level area, and becoming an outer disciple of the Thousand Beasts sect was nothing more than a shortcut. He would be able to jump from the level 7 area to the level 5 area without any effort. That way, his cultivation speed would undoubtedly increase rapidly. Moreover, the cultivation resources of the Thousand Beasts sect were incomparable to those of the outside world. Therefore, in the Myriad Kingdom continent, a world where martial artists were respected, the stronger one was, the more one would have. After all, everyone dreamed of immortality, and continuous breakthroughs were the best way to achieve that goal. The Thousand Beasts sect made an exception to accept outer disciples, which naturally caused a huge commotion. Once people from the surrounding dozens of cities heard the news, they all rushed over without stopping to rest. Even the rank 6 forces sent their experts over. However, the Thousand Beasts sect's selection method was a little surprising. They only wanted the champion of the beast appraisal competition, which annoyed many experts. However, this didn't stop some experts from trying their luck from signing up for the competition. Oh my God, so many people? Yi Hao looked at the long line of people in shock. The line had already stretched past the Song Manor's main entrance. Isn't it just a beast appraisal competition? Does it have to be so exaggerated? Yi Hao was speechless. Did the beast appraisal competition have some generous prizes? Or was everyone in the Myriad Kingdom continent gambling too much? Song Shanshan looked at Yi Hao's shocked expression and asked in confusion, "Don't you know about the prize for the champion of this beast appraisal competition?" Yi Hao spread his arms helplessly and chuckled. "How would I know? Could it be a mythical beast egg?" "Mythical beast egg? Stop dreaming." Song Shanshan saw the people in the queue casting mocking gazes at Yi Hao upon hearing his words. Song Shanshan immediately pulled Yi Hao away as if she was running away. Yi Hao helplessly let Song Shanshan drag him away. "Why are you running away? There's no mythical beast egg, but the prize is to join the Thousand Beasts sect." Song Shanshan pulled Yi Hao to a secluded spot and said, "The Thousand Beasts sect? Are they very powerful?" Yi Hao asked softly when he saw Song Shanshan's exaggerated expression. Song Shanshan really didn't know how to continue this conversation with Yi Hao. She thought Yi Hao was just like those who relied on luck to join the Thousand Beasts sect. Who knew that Yi Hao didn't even know about the Thousand Beasts sect? Song Shanshan was very curious. She widened her bright eyes, her adorable eyelashes fluttering non-stop. "Can you tell me why you're participating in this competition?" "You want to know?" Yi Hao looked at Song Shanshan's adorable appearance and asked with a smile. Yes. Song Shanshan's little head nodded like a chick pecking at rice. She looked at Yi Hao like a curious baby. "Then be my partner." Yi Hao suddenly became playful and said jokingly. Song Shanshan immediately felt her ears burning. She was about to refuse when she remembered Xie Chunyu's request. She nodded and said shyly, "Okay, but you can only be good to me." Yi Hao was a little surprised, as if he had heard wrongly. Looking at this girl's state, she didn't seem to be joking. He quickly refused, "Then forget it." Do you have a partner?" In the world of 10,000 kingdoms, boyfriend and girlfriend were called partners. Although Song Shanshan didn't really want to be Yi Hao's partner, she didn't feel relieved when she heard Yi Hao's refusal. Instead, she asked angrily, "I guess so." Yi Hao looked at Song Shanshan's expression and felt that it was indescribable. However, when it came to his partners, Yi Hao's mind immediately flashed with ZMO or Mu Qingyu, Zhou Hongling, and even Li Ura. As for Zhao Yunhan, forget it. He wasn't interested in her at all. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so ruthless as to destroy the entire Zhao country. If it weren't for the fact that he was engaged to her, Yi Hao wouldn't have kept her alive. When Yi Hao thought of this, he was a little shocked. He hadn't been in the world of 10,000 kingdoms for long, and he had already been involved with so many women. Yi Hao admitted that he was selfish. He didn't want to let any of these women go. As a man, how could he tolerate the women he liked being ruined by other men? The best way was to marry all of them. Chapter 179. At this time, in a mysterious area of the 10,000 Kingdoms continent, a girl in red who looked similar to ZMO walked out and took ZMO's hand. She asked happily, "MO you're back. Where's Yi Hao?" "MO is useless. Please punish me." MO couldn't find Yi Hao. ZMO lowered her head. Her eyes were filled with tears as she said pitifully, "It's fine if you couldn't find him. Why would I punish you?" Zi Xing smiled sweetly. "MO go and find me. I miss you." When ZMO heard this, she remembered that her aunt was still worried about brother Yi Hao. She must tell her aunt this news and let her be happy. ZMO thought happily. "Then I'll go and find you first." ZMO squeezed out 2 drops of tears. Zi Xing looked at ZMO's back as she left. A thoughtful expression appeared in her eyes. When ZMO had completely disappeared, the smile on her face suddenly disappeared. She said coldly, "Lords, please come out." As soon as Zi Xing's voice fell, the 2 martial emperors immediately appeared in front of Zi Xing. They bowed respectfully and said, "Greetings, First Princess. What's the situation?" Is it really like what Emoer said? Xing flicked her sleeves and looked coldly at the two of them. Although the little princess is playful, we really couldn't find Yi Hao, that evil creature. The thin martial emperor said softly. Shut up. How many times have I said it? You can't say that Yi Hao is an evil creature in the palace. If my aunt hears it, we'll be in trouble. Xing glared fiercely at the thin martial emperor and scolded coldly. I know my mistake. Please punish me. The thin martial emperor shuddered and quickly knelt on the ground. Xing glanced around and waved her hand. Get up. If there's a next time, I won't let you off easily. Yes. The thin martial emperor heaved a sigh of relief and quickly stood up. Xing asked again. Mo, did you come into contact with anyone along the way? Yi Shui's figure immediately appeared in the thin martial emperor's mind. But when he thought of Zmo's request, if the first princess found out that Zmo had been playing for half a month, the first princess would definitely charge them with dereliction of duty. Moreover, in their eyes, Yi Shui was just a country bumpkin. It didn't matter if they mentioned him or not. The thin martial emperor hurriedly said, reporting to the first princess, the little princess has been with us. In that case, all of you can go and rest. I'll go look for my aunt. Remember to keep your mouth shut, or else. Xing believed them and did not ask any further questions. She warned them coldly. Don't worry, first princess. The fat and thin martial emperors quickly bowed and left. Looking at the backs of the fat and thin martial emperors, a murderous intent flashed in Xing's eyes. Count yourselves lucky this time. If you had really killed Yi Hao, do you think I would have let you live? After the fat and thin martial emperors left, the two exchanged glances and wiped the cold sweat off their foreheads. The thin martial emperor said carefully, the first princess is simply too scary. Earlier, I felt like my heart was about to leap out of my chest. That's because the first princess has a peerless spirit body. The God Emperor has the intention of grooming the first princess to become the next God Emperor, the fat martial emperor said with some envy. Suddenly, the thin martial emperor sent a voice transmission to the fat martial emperor. Say, if we had really killed Yi Hao, would we have been able to live? The fat martial emperor took a deep look at the thin martial emperor and said with a smile, so, you didn't make a move, right? So, you've noticed it too. The thin martial emperor chuckled. How could such a small trick escape our spiritual senses? So, Yi Shui is just a country bumpkin. We've never seen Yi Hao before. We don't even know who Yi Shui is. The two of them had no choice but to be careful in their hearts. Otherwise, they might fall into a bottomless abyss at any time. Yi Hao was the imperial aunt's son. The imperial aunt would definitely do her best to protect Yi Hao. However, the God Emperor treated Yi Hao as a disgrace and wanted to kill Yi Hao. The imperial aunt and the God Emperor were about the same in terms of strength and influence. They could not afford to offend either of them. Even if they found out that Yi Hao was Yi Shui, they could only pretend that they did not know. Only in this way could they not offend either side. Moreover, although Zmo and Xing were twins, one of them had a personality like the God Emperor and the other like the imperial aunt. The two of them were doted on by the God Emperor and the imperial aunt respectively. Aunt, I'm back. Zmo skipped to the imperial aunt's palace. She wanted to tell her aunt the news of Yi Hao as soon as possible so that her aunt who loved her could be happy. A beautiful woman was sitting in the palace. At this moment, she was lying on the throne with a worried expression. When she heard Zmo's clear voice, she opened her eyes in disbelief. The worry on her face was covered by a smile. Mo, you're back. Run slowly. Don't get hurt. Zmo immediately threw herself into the woman's arms. She sat on the throne and said coquettishly, Aunt Mo missed you so much. I thought you lost him. You still know how to miss me? The woman touched Zmo's head lovingly and said with a smile, Aunt, I saw brother Yi Hao, Zmo suddenly said mysteriously. What? The woman's expression changed. She glanced at the palace. Mo follow me to the back. Zmo also knew that this was not a trivial matter. She hurriedly followed the woman to the back of the palace. The woman asked anxiously, They didn't hurt my son, right? Otherwise, I would definitely not let them go. I would kill them with my own hands as an apology to my son. Feeling the overwhelming killing intent from her aunt and the powerful force from the woman, Zmo was sent flying. A trace of blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. Mo. The woman hurriedly withdrew her aura and hurriedly helped Zmo up. She took out a pill and put it in Zmo's mouth. Mo, are you alright? It's all my fault. I couldn't control myself. The woman helped Zmo up and said with self-blame. Zmo smiled and shook her head. Aunt, I'm just slightly injured. Isn't it too wasteful to use a divine pill? Silly girl, it's just a divine pill. How can it compare to your body? The woman smiled lovingly and touched her head. Zmo seemed to enjoy it very much. At the same time, she said, Aunt, don't worry. Brother Yi Hao is safe and sound now. As if thinking of something, Zmo took out a large bag of lollipops from the space and handed it to the woman. The woman looked at the lollipop in Zmo's hand in puzzlement. What is this? Brother Yi Hao said that this is a lollipop. He's the only one in the 10,000 land continent who has it. Zmo tore one open and stuffed it into the woman's mouth. When the woman heard that it was a gift from her son, she didn't dodge it. She felt the lollipop in her mouth and the sweetness filled her taste buds. 2 streams of tears flowed out of the woman's eyes uncontrollably. So sweet. Chapter 180. Auntie, why are you crying? Zmo quickly wiped the woman's tears with her small hands. It's nothing. Can Mo give me this bag of lollipops? The woman took out the lollipop in her mouth. She was reluctant to eat it because it was given by her son. Then, she looked at the bag of lollipops in Zmo's hand. Here, Auntie. Brother Yi Hao gave me a lot. Zmo immediately stuffed the lollipop into the woman's hand. Thank you, Mo. The woman held the bag of lollipops in her arms. How is Brother Yi Hao? Auntie, don't worry. Although Brother Yi Hao's rank is very low, he is Wu Ho rank 6. Moreover, he hid his identity. Those people in the country of Yi will definitely not be able to do anything to Brother Yi Hao because Brother Yi Hao is very mature and steady. He is brave and resourceful. Hearing Zmo's words, the woman's tears gushed out again. She more or less understood the environment in the country of Yi. A 14-year-old child with a rank 6 Wu Ho rank 6 was not worth mentioning in the outside world. However, in the environment in the country of Yi, she could imagine how much suffering Yi Hao had suffered. If he was not threatened, then Yi Hao would not have to hide his identity. She wanted so much to bring Yi Hao to her side, but she could not. Auntie, sister has captured that uncle. The uncle Zmo was talking about was naturally Yi Batian. The woman nodded. I know about this. His life is not in danger for the time being, but the premise is that I cannot see him. As long as my son is fine, I am relieved. They really thought that I did not know what they asked your sister to do. I did not expect that they would not let my son go even now. The woman said coldly. Auntie, don't worry. I told Brother Yi Hao that as long as he has not reached the martial god realm, he should not come looking for us. Moreover, I did not tell him my identity. Zmo comforted her. The woman smiled absent-mindedly. Doesn't that mean that I will not be able to see my son for the rest of my life? Zmo was silent. It was too difficult for someone to reach the martial god realm. In their eyes, it was almost impossible for Yi Hao to reach the martial god realm. Mo, I beg you for a favor. The woman looked at Zmo and suddenly saw a glimmer of hope. Aunt, tell me. As long as it's something you ask me to do, I'll definitely do it. Zmo could feel the despair in the woman's heart at that moment. If it was so easy to become a martial god, then there would be martial gods everywhere. Otherwise, there wouldn't only be one every few thousand years. It was because it was too difficult. Moreover, it might really be like what the woman said. She might not be able to see Yi Hao again for the rest of her life. In her heart, she still liked being with Yi Hao very much. Moreover, she also wanted to help her aunt, who loved her dearly, and reunite with her son. When I brought you and your sister here, you knew that your aptitude was no less than your sister's. Zmo nodded. It was just that she didn't like to cultivate, so her cultivation wasn't as high as her sister's. Her sister was also nurtured by the next Emperor God. I want your realm to surpass your sister's and let you fight for the position of Emperor God. After the woman finished speaking, Zmo cried out in surprise, "But Aunt, I don't like to cultivate." "Then don't you want to help me? Don't you want to see your brother Yi Hao?" The woman continued to persuade. "I want to help Aunt. I want to see brother Yi Hao, but my sister." Zmo felt a little uncomfortable when she thought of fighting for the position of Emperor God with her sister. "Haven't you noticed that your sister has changed? She has become cold-blooded. Your sister now is more and more like the Emperor God." The woman sighed and said, originally, she had picked up Xing and Zmo. She treated both girls like her own daughters. However, in such an environment, only Zmo still maintained her nature. Yes. Zmo was not stupid. She could definitely sense the change in her sister. At this moment, the two of them had not noticed that Xing was standing outside the door with a cold expression. Listening to their conversation, Xing clenched her fists tightly and turned to leave. "Father, I have something to report." Xing came to a palace with an ancient aura and stood at the door of the palace. "Oh, it's Xing. Come in." The 100-foot door of the palace opened automatically. A voice that sounded like a man and a woman came from inside. "You're back, right?" In the depths of the palace, an ethereal and blurry figure said coldly. "Yes, father. Mo has been in contact with that evil creature. Now Mo is with Aunt." Xing knelt below the throne. She could not see the face on the throne at all. A murderous intent flashed in her eyes. "Those two trash dared to lie to me. I'll tear them into pieces." The trash Zmo was talking about was naturally the fat and thin martial emperors. The person on the throne said coldly, "Xing, how many times have I told you? You must consider everything before doing anything. If you kill those two trash, it will definitely arouse your aunt's suspicion. Then, I won't be able to explain it to her. I know I'm wrong. Please punish me, father. However, that evil creature must be killed. And that Yi Batian." Xing naturally chose to stand on the Emperor God's side. Naturally, she had to consider everything for the Emperor God. "Your aunt's power now is no less than mine. I can't kill Yi Batian for the time being. I can't break the rules first. As for that evil creature being killed, I believe that many people would be willing to see that. As long as those who support your aunt support me at that time, your aunt won't be able to cause any big waves," the Emperor God said coldly. "Then, I'll send someone to kill Yi Hao." Hearing the Emperor God's words, Xing sneered. She thought to herself, "Mo, you're destined to be on the wrong side by following Aunt. The next Emperor God can only be me. By the way, I asked you to investigate the person with the innate holy martial spirit body who caused the strange phenomenon. How's the progress?" The Emperor God was very satisfied with Xing's performance. He asked anxiously. Xing shook her head weakly. "I'm useless. I still don't have a clue." The Emperor God was slightly angered. The entire palace was filled with a cold aura. He said sternly, "The innate holy martial spirit body hasn't appeared for 10,000 years. Go and find him." You must find him. Even if you're afraid of turning the entire myriad kingdom continent upside down, you must find him. Even if the innate holy martial spirit body is destroyed, you must not let other forces get it. The Emperor God did not forget to remind her again. I'll send more people. I'll definitely find that person quickly. Zi Xing also had unspeakable bitterness in her heart. The myriad kingdom continent was too big. Several martial sages had been sent out. However, there was only one strange phenomenon that proved the birth of the innate holy martial spirit body. There was no specific information about the person. Where could they find him? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.